Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm David Martzall. I'm a resident of Bainbridge Island. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of livable Bainbridge, recognizing that we have vital, time-sensitive deliberations ahead of you tonight. We've combined our comments into a single short statement to respect your time. As a growing group of community members, we are deeply committed to making actual long-term housing affordability a reality on this island, while ensuring our growth remains environmentally sustainable. We firmly believe that smart, transit-oriented density in Winslow is the single best way to protect our critical aquifers and conservation areas from outward single-family sprawl. I want to sincerely thank all of you and the Planning Commission and city staff for the extraordinary time, energy, and dedication you have poured into updating our comprehensive plan, balancing the protection of our unique island environment while addressing our longstanding affordable housing shortage and navigating now the state's complex new mandates is a monumental task. We all know that the city of Bainbridge Island, is under intense pressure right now. The Department of Commerce has made clear we must bring our regulations into compliance with the Growth Management Act. Failing to do so isn't just a legal risk, it actually puts our city at severe reputational and financial risk of losing vital state revenue and matching grants for infrastructure projects we desperately need. Because the stakes are so high, we must focus on practical data-driven solutions that protect our community while satisfying the state mandate. That is why we urge all of you as the 7 council members to support a revised mandatory inclusionary zoning MIZ program that triggers based on unit count rather than parcel acreage. The 4-3 vote on June 30th to remove the previous MIZ wasn't a rejection of affordable housing, at least I think not. It was a rejection of a structurally flawed tool. The city's economic consultants, I think as you all know, LMN, pointed out that a land area threshold of 2+ acres is practically unprecedented in our region and actively invites developers to simply subdivide parcels down to 1.99 acres to bypass affordable housing requirements entirely. Tonight, we can fix that tool by shifting the MIZ trigger from 2+ acres to any development of 10 or more units. We align Bainbridge with regional best practices. Shifting to a 10-unit threshold accomplishes 3 critical things. It would stop the loophole. A 10-unit threshold completely diffuses the subdivision loophole, as cutting projects into smaller fragmented builds becomes economically self-defeating for developers due to lost efficiencies. It actually factually pencils. Local development experts and the city's own consultants, as you know, agree that given available density bonuses, the affordable requirements of an expanded MIZ are highly feasible for builders as well as lenders. And finally, it safely meets state targets. The original 2-acre MIZ applied to only 9 parcels, at least we believe, island-wide. Shifting to a 10-unit threshold expands that program to as many as 51 parcels, creating a reliable buffer that should satisfy Department of Commerce. This proposal is a true compromise. It establishes a balanced 3-tier system, lower density for purely market rate builds, a robust mixed income tier via the MIZ, and maximum density, which would be preserved only for fully subsidized low-income projects led by the city and the nonprofits the city chooses to partner with. I say let's lower the temperature in our community conversation. Reinstating the MIZ program with a 10-unit threshold is legally sound, economically viable, and represents a sensible path forward. I want to thank you, I'm sorry for going over, for your leadership and your continued service to our treasure of an island. Thank you all.
Thank you, David. Mary, followed by Mary Claire Kirsten. Mary, yeah. Followed by Mary Claire. Thank you. You have to hold it for a moment.
Slow, like so many of us, it's slow and moving. I have just 2 comments, and then I wanted to tell us a little bit of a story because it's a tough night and stories are great. The 2 points I want to make is I really urge you to go back to the decisions that were made by the Planning Commission. I sat through that whole last meeting. A lot of really important thought went into those recommendations. More importantly, 18 months of hard work and public participation went into those recommendations. I think it's really important that public participation be part of this. And I think the best way to preserve that is to go back to that decision. If you're going to make changes, you can make changes later. Also, if you're going to upzone, it's very hard to go in the opposite direction because you can be accused of taking. So let's just keep it conservative. I think that was a well thought out decision. And I urge you also from the perspective of the public watching that you do that. And related to that is the decision on the city manager. I know it's tough. I know you guys have been functioning, Ellen probably more than anybody wants a city manager. And I would really like to see you reopen that and rethink it. That position is critical, not just for you, but also for the public. And I think while some of you were really happy with the last city manager, I think the perception from the public, a lot of us is, he talked a lot to you. He didn't talk a lot to us. And too often cut out public participation. And we really want to see that reversed. So it's going to really matter to get the right city manager in there, someone who's going to reopen the door to that public participation. So now the story part, because I promised you that. I've lived in a lot of different places. I've lived in Washington, D.C. for almost 30 years, where I started my career, Santa Fe, Michigan. And when I came to Bainbridge, I was looking for a community. Above all else, I wanted community. And I have been very impressed with this community. This is a solid community. And when I say you should want public participation, it's because there's such good public participation here. I mean, look at just the groundwater management plan, how much hard work, volunteer hard work by people with scientific backgrounds went into that. And we're getting a handle on that really for the first time. There's a lot of talent here. I know there's also a lot of talent in the issue of affordable housing, creative solutions to those issues. So I urge you to really look to that public participation. In terms of the story, I lived for 13 years. At the end of my time in Washington, D.C., I lived in Columbia, Maryland. Columbia, Maryland was one of the first planned urban developments in the United States. It was planned in the early 70s around a village concept. And the idea was mixed use. Everybody could walk to a grocery store, to a local community center, and it was an amazing community. When I moved there, it was a wonderful place to live. And then Baltimore and Washington, D.C. got bigger, and Columbia became commuting distance. And in 13 years, I watched that housing sterilize that city. Basically, it became a bedroom community for Baltimore and Washington, D.C. People weren't there during the day. All of the village stuff went away. And, by the time I left, you could still find a good yoga class there because of the root of that area. But the community was lost. And I think we're very much at risk here with Seattle so close to have the same thing happen. So the story is, please don't let that happen here, because it really is, sterilizing is the best word I can use for it. At the same time, to go back to where I started, if there's any community that can pull this off, it's this community. People here really care. There's a lot of heart and a lot of just really good, intelligent thinking. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary. And Mary Claire, followed by Carla Mather. Pardon me.
Good evening, members of the City Council. I want to take a moment and remind us all, myself included, of the nature of the role you hold. When you took your seat on this council, you accepted more than a title. You accepted a fiduciary duty, a legal and moral obligation to act in the best interests of the people you represent, not your own interests, not the path of least resistance. A fiduciary doesn't just avoid outright corruption. A fiduciary is held to a higher standard of loyalty, care, and transparency. That means every vote you cast should be able to withstand the question, does this serve the town or does this serve someone else? It means listening to public comment, not as a formality to get through, but as information you're obliged to weigh. It means reading the staff reports in full, asking hard questions before decisions are made, not after. It means being honest with us when a choice is difficult or unpopular, rather than dressing up shortcut as a solution. Citizens can't always attend every meeting, read every budget line, or track every ordinance. That's exactly why we elect people like you. The trust you were given is not a blank check. It's a responsibility that has to be earned again at every meeting with every vote. So my ask tonight is simple. As you deliberate on the items in front of you, ask yourself, whose interest are you actually serving? Hold each other accountable to that standard. And in addition to that, I would ask as well that you reopen the search for a city manager, given what has happened with the previous candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Claire. Carla Mather, followed by Gloria Sayer.
So Mary Claire Kirsten, 145 Ferncliff. I'm speaking tonight. I'm echoing the same thing. Please reopen that search for city manager. Many people who came to the discussion between the two remaining candidates were not pleased with the Mr. Morrow choice at all. On top of that, as you know, many people from Bainbridge have moved, retired up to Port Townsend. People are receiving phone, including me, receiving communications from people who are our friends who live up there who are saying no way. And there's lots of newspaper articles that should really send up a lot of red flags that this should not be our only choice that we get to choose from here on Bainbridge. There should be some other people. So please, and this is a widely held belief for anybody who's been following this or listened to what was said. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I kind of jumped the gun there. Carla Mathers and then Gloria Sayre. Oh, you did? Okay, got it. Very good. No, then Gloria Sayre, then Ellen Lockhart.
Didn't expect to be coming up here twice tonight, but thank you for your time. I'm coming up tonight. I was thinking of emailing you, and I still may, but I wanted to highlight two of the issues that were raised in a recent opinion piece in the review. I don't know the author, but I agreed with some of the points she made. One was, the title was BI has an accountability issue. And she said something that really echoes some of the comments here. I was so disturbed when I heard that you had decided to just go over the Planning Commission recommendations when they had worked so hard, and they're unpaid volunteers. You are paid. They are not. They have been working long hours. They've heard lots of public discussion. And I just find it both disrespectful and not serving the community to disregard their recommendations. And in the process, although all of you talk about wanting affordable housing, in fact, you gave up some of the tools you have for increasing affordable housing and just upzoned without them and without environmental accountability. So I really would urge you, as some others have, to go back to the Planning Commission document and sign that, and you can, again, change it in future. But I think they worked very hard to meet the community's desires and the state's requirements. And I don't think the document that you've chosen to replace it with does that as well. The other point she made was that infrastructure is critical for further development. And I wish it's one of the times that I wish my husband were here, because Randall could speak to sewage treatment in a way that I obviously cannot, because he had a master's degree in engineering, and worked long and hard for several firms and for Metro about the need to upgrade their sewage treatment plant. And we currently need a better sewage treatment plant. And certainly before we add considerable development, we can't take it back once we've allowed a lot of building, but we can suffer the consequences of an inadequate sewage treatment and other infrastructure. So I would really say that the Planning Commission decision especially was painful for me. I've volunteered on a committee. It was pretty low demand, but I think you're lucky to get volunteers to sign up, especially for the Planning Commission, given the demands that were put on them. And I think it's insulting that you just went by what their recommendations were. So thank you for your service, and I have a few cautions.
Thank you, Gloria. No, please, no response from the audience. Appreciate that. Thank you. Gloria Sayre, Ellen Lockhart, and then Don Jano.
Glasses switch.
It's from my wardrobe of glasses. Good evening. My name is Ellen Lockhart. Nina and I were lucky enough to move here from Seattle 43 years ago. We came for the spectacular natural beauty, the friendly small town, and neighbors who looked out for each other. We loved that there was less traffic and more parking, and we felt safe walking alone at nighttime. We left our keys in our cars, our doors were unlocked, and our purses were in our grocery carts. Today, we could no longer afford to buy our house, and I watch increasingly property taxes driving other long-term, older residents off the island where young people can no longer afford to live. That's just not right. We desperately need more varied options for affordable housing. For instance, how about support for the trailer park where 50 people need help replacing their water system? I think that there are a lot of little options like that that are worth considering as we move forward. I really don't understand what you're doing. The push to maximize density without an increase in affordability just doesn't make any sense to me. I think there may be a false assumption that increased market rate density will automatically increase affordability. And in fact, that's not the case in highly desirable locations because we have high property values and it is more expensive to build here, and that the end result will be more expensive housing. It will always be more expensive to build here than Forks or Gorst for that reason. Increased market rate housing will mean more people who can afford market rate, not more affordability. This massive upzoning will also require more infrastructure. People have talked about that before, but it's a real concern. New sewer plant, new roads, new public safety people, new fire stations, new groundwater management, the list goes on. And the tax increases to pay for that will force out the very people who we're trying to help. So I think that that's worth considering as we move forward. And then there's water. I live in the South End where we're now rationing water, and climate change drought will only increase water shortages. Despite your best efforts to minimize the federally designated sole source aquifer, it's a fact. It's also a fact that the 2026 Groundwater Management Plan acknowledges that water availability is ambiguous. I quote, current usage could be sustainable or unsustainable, depending on what the actual values are for sustainable yield and current use, because these actual values cannot be known with certainty. It is not possible to say definitively if the current usage is unsustainable or sustainable. So there were lots of things said in that document, but this is the heart of the matter, which is we really don't know for sure. And we are entering a period of climate disruption where there will be more and more drought. So it is a worry, especially given that we're already rationing water where I live. So I don't see any consideration of possible water shortages in the massive upzone plan. So that becomes a question for me and a deep concern. And by the way, I was fine, like many of the people here, with the document and the suggestion that came out of the Planning Commission. I thought there was tremendous work and I thought it was a really good compromise. So I would encourage you to negotiate an extension from Commerce for your delivery of a product and to go back to that Planning Commission recommendation. I think it's something that a lot of us could live with comfortably. I'm also deeply concerned with the many process irregularities that have accompanied your rush to massively upzone market rate housing. These include open public meetings requirements, where there have been violations, and once again, skipping over the required environmental impact statements for all the recent versions of the plan. We need to get this right. Finally, despite your sense of urgency, I strongly urge you to reopen the city manager hiring process. We deserve better than the leftover candidate. Eyes wide open. Mauro comes to us with an immense amount of baggage and outrageous salary requirements. He is a divider, not a uniter, and we desperately need a uniter at this time in our history.
Thank you, Ellen. You're a minute and 15 seconds over. Would you please wrap up?
All right. Based on his track record, I would never have hired him for my little 30-person business. Do not hire this troubled candidate. You will be sorry. Thank you.
Don Jano?
Hi, Council. Thank you so much for taking our comments this evening. I'm Dawn Jano. I live on Terra Lane. I'm down at the South End. And with only 3 minutes and a very full agenda, I'm going to which is problematic, right? But I'm going to get as quickly as I can. First, on the city manager agenda item, I urge you to reconsider advancing the contract to Mr. Morrow this evening. As your very first and only search, you're left with one candidate and no meaningful choice at all. And Kobe's own outreach shows over 82% of respondents are not in favor of him for this position. Advancing a more than $250,000 per year contract simply because he is the last person standing is not how you set leadership for this community. And if the motivation to advance tonight is to avoid upsetting the candidate or to satisfy an abstract deadline or sense of duress, then you are freely giving away your leadership and oversight, the very reasons we elected you. In deference to the feelings of the potential new city manager, we lived through this dynamic with our previous city manager. Are you prepared to recreate it? Please reopen the search so your credibility, your leadership, and the credibility of whomever ultimately rises to the top is preserved. And that may still be Mr. Morrow, but please consider reopening the search. Second, I need to raise a serious open public meetings related notice concern about item 7B on tonight's agenda. This item, as it stands, says discuss ordinance 2026-05. Nowhere does the published agenda indicate that action may be taken on this major comprehensive plan ordinance. Discuss means discussion. It does not mean voting on substantive amendments. Yet the agenda packet contains multiple motions from both staff and council members that could materially change the ordinance's outcome. And the agenda packet is not the agenda. The public is entitled to clear notice on the agenda itself. Even for the tiny fraction of us who actually read the packet, we've watched significant motions in the recent months surface and advance from the floor with absolutely no notice whatsoever. It leaves the public in the dark and without meaningful participation. That is not transparent, and that is not acceptable for our comprehensive plan, something that's going to guide this city for the next multiple years. Sorry. And I want to thank staff actually for making the packet available and for helping through public records requests to provide the city manager survey information that we now all have access to, which was available at 1 p.m. this afternoon. But the public should not have to dig through public records requests or hunt through packets to understand what actions the council is taking. So tonight, I respectfully request that council clearly identify which motions are expected under item 7B tonight, and that any additional substantive motions not clearly noticed anywhere be rescheduled. Clear notice is essential for transparency and meaningful public participation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Don. That's the last of the people who've signed up. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come forward? Please identify yourself and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Evening, Council. I'm Ron Peltier. Live on Valley Road. First, I just want to say that we keep hearing that we just need to build a lot of housing and it's going to be affordable. There's really no examples of that being true anywhere in the country where you can build your way to affordability. Massive building can affect the cost of rent in apartments, but it's something you have to keep doing. And it's not going to work on Bainbridge Island. What we need is targeted upzoning for affordable housing only, and that's been proposed. Kirsten, you proposed it, got voted down by the council. That's what we need. So what I really want to comment about is the city manager selection process. We had 4 candidates, 3 of them have pulled out, and we heard that, oh, they took jobs in other cities. Well, we're not hearing the full story, obviously. Once they got a look at Bainbridge Island, that might have had an influence on their decision where to take a job. We had a meeting here. It was like a forum of the 2 last candidates, Jeff Knighton and John Morrow. And a lot of people really liked Jeff. In a survey that was done right after that, Jeff got 83% approval. People liked him. John Morrow got 14%. And here he is tonight. You're fixing to approve a contract for him. And we have red flags coming from Port Townsend, somebody who's has a temper, is thin-skinned, circles the wagons when issues come up. So I'd like to for just a minute, I got a little bit of time left, talk about why candidates, why Jeff, for example, he was very diplomatic in the news story that was run on him pulling out of the consideration. But why would he lives in Paulsbo, but he's commuting to, I think it's Mount Lake Terrace or one of those places. Why would he not want to work here? Well, you could start by looking at social media. You could try that out. You could come to a lot of meetings and hear public comment. There's a lot of division in this community over issues like groundwater and growth and race equity. We have a race equity committee that's, in my opinion, has way too much statutory authority. So emboldened that one of the chairs, the co-chairs, attacked a member of the city council in an op-ed in the newspaper, using innuendo to accuse him of being a racist and also painting him as a Trumpian shill. So if I were a candidate looking at Bainbridge Island, I'd go, that looks like a lot of work, working for that community. So here's my recommendation. I got 4 seconds left. Put off this selection process, have an interim city manager. Maybe Ellen would be willing to stay on. She's done a great job. She'd probably make a really good city manager. She'd do it. And let things settle down a little bit. Start the process over. Maybe we can settle a few things. Maybe people will settle down. I wouldn't bet on it, but maybe. And maybe consider, it's been since 2009 when we changed from a strong mayor form of government to city manager. Maybe it's time to reconsider if we want to go back to a strong mayor. And I think you all know the process for that. So anyhow, that's my two bits. And have a great meeting. Thanks for listening.
Ron? City Clerk, is there anyone signed up to go online?
Yes, we have 2 people signed up. The first is Christine Quinn.
Christine, please welcome. And limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Perhaps we could go to the second. She may be having, oh, she's joining now. To Mike Sirachi.
Okay.
Mr. Sirachi, if you could turn on your camera, then you could begin speaking. Okay, we are trying to promote Christine Quinn, and if she would accept, then
Thank you, City Clerk. Christine, would you please enter the room?
We're going to try to promote both of them one more time. They have their hands raised. They appear to be having technical problems.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Do you have your camera on?
Is the camera on?
We don't see you.
Oh, this is, here we go. How about now?
Hello, Mike. Good to see you. You have 3
Thank you.
minutes, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and city staff and attendees. My name is Mike Sarassi. I would like to start my comments by providing my background. My family has resided in Bainbridge Island since October 1977, nearly 50 years. I've seen lots of change. I appreciate the opportunity to speak via Zoom as I am unable to attend your meeting in person. Tonight, I speak with the concern that the voices of the Bainbridge Island residents, who you city council members represent, is being ignored. I find this frustrating. I believe that it is most important that the citizens of Bainbridge Island have confidence in the performance of those whom they elected. I attended the Meet Your Candidates meeting. I spoke with the finalists. I provided feedback on the survey form provided. Tonight, it appears that the process of selecting a new city manager has become flawed. It is not my intent to attack the remaining candidate. However, their process appears to have been flawed. Citizens have researched the background of the finalist after another finalist withdrew and uncovered vital information that the search firm should have disclosed. Timing does not appear to be critical. We are very fortunate that the interim city manager has done such an outstanding job. I ask that City Council put on the brakes, recognize the importance of maintaining credibility with your constituents, take a look at the process, evaluate the needs to consider reopening the process. A cool down period would be beneficial to all parties. If I were the finalist, I would be reluctant to accept this city manager position under such negative circumstances. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for keeping on 3 minutes. Is the other person online ready to be entered into the room?
We are promoting her right now.
Thank you. Hello, Shane, can you hear us?
Yes. Uh-oh.
The speaker off or something.
Okay, how's that?
Much better. Thank you. Thanks, Christine. Would you please?
Okay.
3 minutes? Take a break. Go ahead.
Okay, let me try. Is it? Oh, it's still echoing.
Do you happen to have another phone or something on?
No.
You turn your speaker off? Your speaker, you don't necessarily need to hear us.
Okay, audio.
But don't turn off your volume. Don't turn off your mic.
Okay. How is it now? Okay. Is that?
I think that sounds okay.
Okay. No.
Maybe not.
Okay, I think I can't get it not to echo.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and maybe make the comments short, that way the echo doesn't prolong. You mean, make your statements.
Okay, I will make it really short. I want to
Okay.
say in good conscience, I don't think you can advance John Morrow. You've seen his record and the risk is not acceptable. So please stop this. You are elected to do what's best for Bainbridge Island, and this is not what's best. Thanks, I made that really short.
You certainly did. Thank you, Christine. I think you got your point across. Appreciate your time. All right. Any other individuals? Right, seeing other, I will close public comment and move to consent agenda. Council's pleasure. Councilmember Lamb.
I'd like to pull item H from the consent agenda.
All right. Item H has been proposed to be removed. Any other comments from council? Councilmember Nelson.
I move to approve the consent agenda with H removed, and I'd like to briefly speak to the motion.
Got to wait for a second.
Second.
Okay. Proceed.
I just want to briefly thank the interim city manager as far as item 5D. I really appreciate her, the city working with the farmers market to solve this issue. I think we've all heard a lot from local nonprofits about how they want a table at the farmers market. So I just want to thank you, interim city manager, for going out there and just solving it. And also thank you to the farmers market. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Councilman. Please no response in the audience. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with item H withdrawn. Any other further discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The vote is 5-0. The chair votes aye. Councilor Matthews is en route. Councilmember Land. Boy, talk about timing. Here we are. Councilmember Land, you pulled item H, please.
Yes. All right. I pulled item H just for optics, I guess. As I understand it, the funding tied to the Human Services Task Force. So this is recommendation to forward the Human Services funding request for proposed process criteria and scoring matrix for approval to the July 28th regular business meeting, which I absolutely support that. The reason that I wanted to pull this item is just to bring to council's attention that the funding that is tied to these awards is a minimum of 1.5% of the city's expenditures. And that dollar amount has remained static since 2017 at a fixed number of $660,000. There's no cost of living, there's no inflationary increases, no device to raise the award to meet any federal or state funding cuts or, as I said, inflation. So I just wanted to have council put a pin in this as we go into budget conversations. I would like to think about increasing the minimum percentage rate, or at least adding increases to account for inflationary costs, or something that we should be considering. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Nelson?
Just briefly, probably a question for the interim city managers. Is this $660,000, has that actually been calculated to be the 1.5%?
It is, but it was not calculated that way. As Councilmember Lant noted, we have used this number since 2000 and I believe 17. I think she has the exact year. And we chose that number at the time as something we could afford and something that fit into the budget and represented council's significant desire to fund these services on the island and also have a balanced budget. And so it has remained the same since that time, and the budget has been built around that. Increasing that would represent an increased cost to the city, obviously more money for the organizations as well. And so we'd just have to have that conversation if that's council's desire, and identify where we might spend less in order to spend more there. Thanks.
And Mayor, if I might, thank you. If I may just jump in there, that 660,000 for this budget cycle represents 1.59% of expenditures.
You're precise on that, correct? Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lant. Any further discussion? Councilmember Lant, would you like to?
Thank you. I'd like to move forward the Human Services funding request for proposal process, or for proposal, the process criteria and scoring matrix for approval at the July 28th regular business meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Lant, seconded by Councilmember Nelson to move item 5H to approval. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Council votes 6-0, chair votes aye 7-0. Thank you, council. Now we move to the city manager's report.
Good evening, council. I have just a couple of quick slides that I want to show you and highlight a couple of items for your consideration and the community's. The first is that the next step of the Eagle Harbor Drive Wyatt Way Complex project is happening this Friday, July 17th. We will be, or our contractors will be applying what's called a slurry seal to the road. So it will be a smooth black surface, sort of edge to edge, and from one end of the project to the other, after which time we will apply the final striping and the project will look pretty much done. So that will be great. On the other side, and the reason for highlighting this in this meeting is that it will necessitate closing one lane of traffic. And for a short period of time, depending on whether 20 or 30 minutes, people who live south of the red area here, which is Wyatt Way, will not be able to leave their neighborhoods for that period of 20 or 30 minutes because the surface will be, when they're doing the south edge only, because that surface will be not drivable upon. We have done everything we can think of to let people know, including this. We have talked with Kitsap Transit and fire and schools and Bainbridge Disposal and all of the people that we can think of for whom this would create a disruption. We acknowledge and regret that this is not a place in the island where there's a grid so that people could just drive a different way. We are hoping that people who have an absolute need to be able to leave every single minute between 7 and 5 are able to leave a car at a park and ride or somewhere else, or walk or bike or roll. They can get out other ways, but just wanted to take this opportunity to say that this is happening and we're doing what we can to share this information with the community. So again, that's this coming Friday. Second, just as a reminder, we have come to you and you authorized last month an open call for South Island sewer connections. If people live in the pink or gray areas, they can go on the city's website and fill out an application if they would like to connect to the city's sewer system. The sewage is actually processed by KPUD in Fort Ward, but there is a 30-day process which started yesterday, or 30-day open call period. So I just wanted to say that again here. And then finally, share a little bit of good news about our first month results from the downtown bus loop, our Saturday free downtown hop-on, hop-off service. As you can see from the image on the left, we had we've had nearly 200 people ride this free service every week. And this is available Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. through September the 12th. We had a high point this past weekend for Rotary, where we had 265 people. And then of course, on the first day, I think we got some extra riders as people were trying it out. But again, we hope that people will use this and benefit from this, people who are visiting, people who are just wanting to get around Winslow without driving. So wanted to highlight this for everyone and just say thanks to those who are riding. And we look forward to continuing to track this and potentially do more of this in the future. And then just one last thing while I'm making an announcement, no slide for this one, breaking news. The city's annual roads program starts tomorrow. This is where we grind out and repave different parts of the road. So tomorrow we will start at Yale Malt Place. The 16th, Miller Road will receive not all of Miller Road, but parts of it will be ground out and repaved. And then we also have projects planned on Country Club Road and then Upper Farm Road later on. So just wanted to let people know that this ongoing maintenance is happening. There won't be road closures for this, but just to acknowledge that this is coming. And we're glad to do this annual repair and maintenance project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any comments? Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, City Manager. I just wanted to acknowledge that I am just apologizing for my appearance. I like to dress with for the respect that this chamber deserves, but I got caught for a few hours on the ferry line and had to just come right here. Didn't have a chance to go change. So I really don't want to be disrespectful in my attire, as well as when we were making the turn, service cuts out as usual. And that was during the comment of Miss Jano. So I didn't want her to think that I also was like leaving for her comment. So that's why I came in back at the end. So I'm glad to be here. And City Attorney Soming was also next to me. So I'm sure adjacent. So yes, we're both glad to have made it.
Well, we're both glad both Councilmember Matthews and our city attorney had ferry woes and efforts at multiple hours. It's been at least 3 or 4 hours almost total. Yeah. And I think you look very graceful. So I would just make that comment. Any questions or anything for the city manager? Right, thank you. So let's move on to regular business 7A. Let's have possible endorse the legislative priorities and policy document for the 2027 105-day legislative session in Olympia.
Thank you, Council. I'd like to introduce this annual discussion. We have our lobbyists are here from Gordon Thomas Honeywell to provide you with a briefing. There are 2 draft documents in your packet that we hope to review with you and receive council feedback, acknowledging that we will schedule this for further consideration and discussion at a later meeting. The first of those documents is the legislative priority document, which provides guidance to our lobbyists on 3 to 5 most important issues. And then the second is legislative policy statements, providing our lobbyists and staff with council's overall direction so that we can respond to inquiries and provide responses. I'd like to introduce Brianna Murray and Kyle Schroeder, who are here to provide us with some information. Thank you.
Thank you, Interim City Manager, and it's a pleasure to be here, Mayor and Council, to share with you some context and thoughts as you develop your 2027 legislative agenda. To get us started, I think you all are familiar with me, but you all have not gotten the opportunity to meet Kyle. So I'm going to give him just a minute to introduce himself, and he's going to tackle the first slide.
Before we get started, Kyle, we have a high-tech podium there. There's a button to your right. You can raise it. You have to hold it for a moment. I don't need to make you into a hunchback pose. So
okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you very much. My name is Kyle Schroeder. I'm with Gordon Thomas Honeywell Government Relations on Brianna Murray's team. I've been with the firm for about 10 years now, and it's my pleasure to join her and her team and be with you guys tonight. Just to give a brief overview of the agenda tonight, we're going to give a preview of the 2027 legislative agenda. We'll then provide an update on the Association of Washington Cities and their process to develop their legislative priorities and agenda. We'll then review some guidance and direction on developing legislative agendas in general, and then we'll review the draft legislative agenda items and documents that we've begun to prepare, and then go over some next steps.
We're not going to just move this podium up and down all evening. We're going to alternate slides and I'm just going to be short. So I'm going to start by providing us with just some context for you all to consider as you develop your legislative agenda. One of the ways that we advise you all in developing a successful legislative agenda is that you put together requests that align with the political and budgetary realities that we're living in. So I want to, the next couple slides is to give you a sense of what those realities are. We're starting, the 2027 session will start the beginning of the next legislative biennium. So the legislature operates on 2-year cycles, and it will be the first year of that 2-year cycle. And it's scheduled, therefore, to be a long legislative session, which will last 105 consecutive days, including weekends and holidays, starting the second Monday in January. Because it is the first year of the legislative biennium, none of the bills that were previously considered automatically carry over for introduction. Everything starts out as a fresh slate, and the legislature is tasked with developing new biennial budgets. You all have likely noticed that it is election season for the state legislature. There's an August primary around the corner, which will be followed by the November election. It's likely, as much as a lobbyist can read tea leaves, it is likely Democrats will maintain the majority in both the House of Representatives and the state Senate. However, we had over about a dozen different legislators indicate that they didn't plan to seek re-election. We also have several races where there's intra-party challenges, a Democrat running against a Democrat or a Republican running against a Republican. So while Democrats will likely maintain the majorities in both chambers, we are going to see shifts and changes in the individuals that are serving in the seats that represent communities in the legislature. And that may influence the agenda, the overall agenda that the Democrats choose to set and advance forward this session. In particular, it could move it to be a bit more moderate within the Democrat Party or a bit more progressive within the Democrat Party, depending on how some of these election outcomes come about. Regardless of the outcome of elections, the legislature will go through what's called a reorganization process. They actually hold a committee on committees where they establish their the committees that will be established for the next 2-year cycle. As well as who's chair of those committees, who's ranking member of those committees, and what legislators are assigned to what committees. What that means is that if a legislator serves on a certain committee today, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will serve on that committee when we get to 2027. There is some carryover and continuity that we can predict, but there's a fair amount of unpredictability. And the legislature is known for merging, changing titles and jurisdiction of various committees every 2 years. So we're expecting a reorg. The legislature will also elect their leadership in their respective caucuses. So the House Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Democrats, and Senate Republicans each meet in 4 separate caucuses, and each of those caucuses select a leadership structure to help manage their respective caucuses. and every 2 years they re-elect their leadership. Sometimes it can be more frequent than that, but traditionally it's every 2 years. And we are hearing some rumblings of potential leadership changes. The media has reported that Speaker Lori Jenkins in the House Democrat caucus is facing a challenger from Representative April Berg, who is a Democrat from the Mill Creek area. And on the Senate side, the Senate Democrat Majority Leader Jamie Peterson is facing another Democrat in a fairly significant intra-party race. So it's unclear whether he'll be reelected to the legislature and able to continue to serve as the majority leader. So certainly some potential leadership changes. All this to say that the structure of the legislature from the last 2 years will shift and change and be different for the next coming 2 years, even though we're not going to see a significant change in the political makeup as far as Democrats continuing to hold the majority. I mentioned that the legislature will be developing their biennial budgets. As a reminder, the legislature develops 3 different biennial budgets: an operating budget, transportation, and capital budget. The operating budget is the budget that you hear the most about in the media. It is responsible for funding all state agencies, including the K through 12 and state college systems. It is facing a significant revenue shortfall. The governor's office launches the state budgeting process, and his budgeting office sent out a memo to state agencies asking that they look for cuts to make and that they reevaluate any new programs that have been put in place since 2019 and determine whether or not they should continue forward, and that they look at any programs that are unique to Washington State and not not something that's replicated in most states, and consider that a discretionary program. That budget has been traditionally funded by sales tax, property tax, B&O tax, and then new to the tax mix this year is the millionaire's tax and capital gains taxes. The millionaire's tax was enacted this last legislative session. It won't generate revenue for this biennium. The soonest it would generate revenue is for the subsequent biennium in 2931. It's also unclear whether that tax will be upheld. There's going to be it will be on the November ballot for voters to consider whether or not to repeal that tax, and it has also been challenged through the court system as whether or not it's constitutional. We'll obviously know the outcome of the November initiative prior to the beginning of the legislative session. It's not likely we will have an outcome on the court assessment of whether or not it is constitutional prior to the beginning of the legislative session. I'll also just note that while the millionaire's tax has been controversial amongst community, I'd highlight for you all and remind you of the presentation I gave at the end of the legislative session that there's a direct impact on the city's budget within that proposal. The millionaire's tax included within it sales and use tax exemptions on over-the-counter medications, diapers, and hygiene products. Those exemptions applied to state and local sales tax, which means cities across the state, including you all, will see a net reduction in sales tax collections if and when those go into effect. Notably, if the court overturns the millionaire's tax, those sales and use tax exemptions automatically get overturned. If the voters overturn the millionaire's tax, because of the way the initiative is drafted, the millionaire's tax goes away, but the sales and use tax exemptions remain in place. The next budget that the legislature will develop is the transportation budget. The transportation budget funds highway construction, maintenance, ferries, and the multimodal system. The transportation system is largely funded through the fuel tax, which is a declining revenue source as vehicles become more fuel efficient and adoption of electric vehicles becomes more widespread. Other revenues going into that account include vehicle weight fees and percentage of the funds generated through the Climate Commitment Act. This legislative session, we're expecting a very robust discussion on potential fuel tax replacement or augmenting proposals. You've probably heard about the road usage charge or vehicle miles traveled. A newer proposal that's being circulated is called a highway usage fee, or HUF. And it is a fee that vehicle owners would pay upon registration that's based on the miles per gallon that a vehicle gets. So if it gets 25 miles per gallon or less, it wouldn't pay a fee at all. The owner wouldn't pay a fee at all because that vehicle is paid more fuel tax than a vehicle that gets 30 miles per gallon. And if a vehicle gets 30 miles per gallon, then it would be subject to a fee, and the fee would be graduated based on the fuel efficiency of the vehicle. The transportation budget overall is facing a significant shortfall because the fuel tax is declining. So there's limited funding available within that budget. Generally speaking, the operating budgets and the transportation budgets are facing some dire circumstances. The capital budget is the most stable of the three budgets. It funds the construction of state and local facilities and many different grant programs. And it is funded with bonds that a percentage of the operating budget are dedicated to paying back. So it's got a very reliable revenue source. It also, thus far and historically, has been developed in a bipartisan fashion because bonds require a supermajority vote out of both chambers. If Democrats increase their majority and have a supermajority in both chambers, I suppose it calls to question whether or not that budget would continue to be developed in a bipartisan fashion. So with that budget overview in mind, some major themes that are emerging for this next session are constrained budgets, which I think I just sufficiently overviewed for you all. Ongoing tax policy discussions. There's certainly some additional work that needs to be done on the millionaire's tax. And I think you all are aware that the legislature has earmarked $200 million to be allocated to cities to offset the impacts of the sales and use tax exemptions on cities. But how that revenue is distributed, putting it in statute, determining whether it's ongoing or one time, are all decisions that would be made this upcoming legislative session. There's also a pretty active conversation on how to restructure or change the state's B&O tax code to make it more like a corporate income tax or a margins tax. And if that occurs, it's unclear whether there would be an impact on local B&O tax authority or whether we would want there to be an impact on local B&O tax authority. Some other policy themes that are emerging is a desire for legislators to advance a jobs package and a no-cost jobs package through regulatory reforms. Not certain what that looks like at this point, but some early conversations emphasizing that. And a lot of conversation and concern about affordability for residents, whether that's through housing, transportation costs, utility rates, just a lot of concern. So all of those major themes to take into consideration as you think of your 2027 legislative priorities. The other thing and context for you all to consider is what the Association of Washington Cities is up to. I'm going to let Kyle speak to that.
All right, thank you, Brianna. Just to provide a little bit of context about what other groups are doing out there that sort of represent cities, and that's Association of Washington Cities. And we remain, as part of our advocacy, very engaged with them. We were there with them in Spokane a couple weeks ago at part of their annual conference. I think I saw some of you and that council member there. And it's a great time, a great event. And part of that process involves developing the legislative priorities for next year. And they do this on your behalf for all cities. And we begin to play a role in that process and provide input on behalf of you and other cities out there. That is ongoing right now. They are beginning to look at a few different priorities, or at a high level at the moment. We don't know a lot of the details, but some of the emerging priorities include that city financial stability, that fiscal sustainability, providing and cultivating a better city budget tax environment to ensure that there are a lot of robust revenue tools in light of a declining revenue environment, especially in light of impacts from the millionaire's tax. Other themes include public safety funding measures, infrastructure needs, and rising utility rates. And again, a lot of the details we don't know yet about what AWC will be advocating on, on your sort of your behalf. We'll start to learn more about that next week at a legislative priority committee meeting. Then in August, they will begin to make a recommendation to the full AWC. And then in September, the board will review and adopt the final legislative priorities list and begin advocacy going into the fall and then, of course, next year. So that's a little bit about the AWC process.
We'll transition now to talking about your specific legislative agenda. We have some guidance that we'd like to give you for your consideration. The legislature considers hundreds, thousands of different issues each year. You all can be most effective in advancing your interests by remaining focused and limited in what it is you want your legislators and us as your advocacy team to focus on. So we recommend that you identify 3 to 5 top priorities. If you want a focus on return on investment for engagement in government relations, we'd encourage you to include a capital budget request since that is the most stable of the 3 budgets. I'd highlight that there is limited transportation and operating budget funds. That doesn't mean not to advance funding requests in those buckets, but in advancing a request in those buckets to have realistic expectations of likelihood of success. And then developing politically feasible policy requests that are focused on city-centric issues. I know you all as council are leaders in your community, and there are a lot of different issues that get brought to your attention, ranging from healthcare to education to climate. And I'd just encourage you to focus your legislative agenda on those items where the city and city staff can lend expertise and knowledge direct to that cause. There are other avenues for us to join in partnering and supporting other entities without necessarily making it a top priority. In other words, please don't put, fix the K through 12 education system on your legislative agenda. More appropriately, it belongs on your policy document where you say supporting Bainbridge Island School District in their efforts to accomplish their goals and objectives. Because you all, as city council members, while I'm certain, care deeply about education, are not in charge of education. So that's the high level guidance. We do have a 2-document structure to help guide you. That's the legislative agenda and the policy document. Those 2 documents help us balance wanting that focus with the reality that there are hundreds of different bills that get introduced that have an impact on city business. So I'll let Kyle briefly review the purpose of the 2 documents.
Thanks, Brianna. So the 2 documents that we're looking to get feedback on and are developing is the legislative priorities document. That's that tailored, very focused, high priority list of objectives and tasks that you would like to request from the legislature for the next session. And that includes a capital funding request, like Brianna said. The second document is this more general, maybe catch-all document that provides all the statements and areas of interest and focus for you guys that may not be your top priority, but are areas of interest that you want us to monitor, become engaged on if it does come up in a substantive way, and so forth.
Okay, so I'm not sure how to make the technology work, but I want to direct your attention to the draft legislative priorities and policy document that's included in your materials. The top legislative priority draft, and I guess I want to emphasize, we're putting these drafts in front of you to get your feedback, but these are your legislative priorities. And when you come to Olympia this next legislative session, my hope and expectation is that you all will be wanting to and able to speak to these items and will be able to and willing to testify to these items. So this is your legislative agenda that we're here to help you advance and advocate for. The first item is a placeholder for a capital funding request that, as this document gets finalized, we'd hope gets filled in. We'd encourage you to make requests between the $800,000 and $1.5 million range for the greatest likelihood of having success. I would say if you ask for more than that dollar amount, the legislature is likely to pick a lesser dollar amount and you don't get to pick the smaller dollar amount they picked. So as an example, we had a client that didn't listen to our guidance. They asked for like $8 million and they ended up getting 52,000. So you sometimes want to, and there were a lot of dynamics with that particular request, but you want to put forward a request that's a reasonable dollar amount. Ideally, the project is able to be delivered prior to November of 2028. Technically, you have a little bit more time than that to spend the dollars, but that is the legislature's preferred timeline for delivering projects. In discussion with city staff, there was a project that city staff identified that met that criteria. It was the Springbrook Creek Fish Passage Restoration Project, which has a need of $1.2 million. That project has applied to several different grants, but hasn't been successful in securing the grants. That is actually a fairly compelling story for the legislature to say, hey, we've been trying to use all your programs and they're not working for us. Welcome your feedback on whether that project fits, whether there's a different project, whether you want to advance a capital funding request. You don't necessarily have to. The second item is an item that we have been working on that's a carryover, and that is the high school road roundabout, and imploring upon the legislature and others in state government to fully evaluate and mitigate the impacts of ferry queuing before advancing that project forward. We've gotten some good information about the development of the transportation budget. As I noted, it is facing limited and constrained funds. So I think we're in a good environment to make the request that a project be delayed for additional discussion and evaluation. The next item is also a continuation, which is requesting 3.5 million for the Day Road roundabout, which is a roundabout that you all have identified as a high priority 305 corridor improvement that has a funding shortage. The likelihood of getting a funding appropriation in the transportation budget is limited, given the constrained funding. However, if the legislature chooses to move forward with a highway usage fee or some other type of fuel tax replacement, there may, not guaranteed, but there may be an opportunity for some additional funding. So while there's limited funding, so long as expectations are low, I am comfortable with the draft here recommending that this be one of your top 3 to 5. The next item is an item that I've heard you all discuss and have also heard other cities discuss. In 2021, the legislature enacted new requirements for your housing element and requires cities to now plan for and accommodate housing at all income levels. As cities have been moving forward in adopting comprehensive plans that do that, there have been 2 growth management hearings board decisions, challenges and then decisions, that have been conflicting on what exactly that requirement is. When the 2021 legislation was written and developed, the intent, as I understand it from having been in the room at the time, is that it was intended to only be a planning requirement, and that communities would be adjusting their land use to plan for and accommodate for all income levels. However, one of the recent Growth Management Hearings Board decisions suggests that cities are also responsible for financing and funding the construction of housing at all income levels. Given the limited funding tools that the legislature has provided to cities in order to fund and finance housing, and that there are many factors beyond city funding, such as market, financing, development regulations, energy code regulations, impacting housing, that there's a desire amongst many cities to clarify that plan for and accommodate language means exactly that, to only plan for and accommodate. So this item is to join other municipalities to pursue legislation clarifying that the legislative intent and impact of the language is planning only and not a mandate to fund and finance. And then the last item is a carryover from our previous advocacy efforts to support fast ferries of the mosquito fleet and to continue to meet regularly with Washington State Ferries to see how our advocacy can support more timely ferry service and improve the ferry lane management that you all experience regularly. Those are the top 3 to 5 legislative priorities. The policy document is substantially carries over from year to year. We don't start from scratch every 2 years on the policy document. That carries over. And it's really your all's policy direction on the various items from climate, transportation, land use planning, utilities and infrastructure, community safety, and this gives us a sense of bills to monitor, weigh in on, alert city staff to, and ensure that there's not policies moving forward that have an impact on the city that we miss. So it's proactive direction to us to say, pay attention here. That's the purpose of that document. With that, I'd love to hear your questions and council discussion of your feedback on these documents. We are here earlier than we were last year. You'll recall that you all adopted your legislative agenda the first week of January last year, which was way too late in my opinion. And so we are here early to get your direction because I'm not seeing a huge political shift occurring in Olympia. I don't see any reason for you all to wait. If there is something that comes up in the fall, you all can always go in and make an amendment to the legislative agenda if something emerges that's urgent prior to the beginning of session. But frankly, I want to get to work on your behalf and want to get to work sooner rather than later. So hopefully feedback this evening and we can, depending on your feedback, can move this forward for your approval in short order.
Thanks for your work and great presentation, Brianna, and welcome, Kyle. Nice to see you. We will order Deputy Mayor Hitopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Matthews.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. This all looks great. There's one kind of important nuance which maybe will seem contradictory that I would like to see tweaked. That is that just as one of our main asks is clarification regarding city funding, public funding of affordable housing, important. We clearly cannot build all of the affordable housing. That's important. However, when I do believe that we are one of the only entities that is going to provide affordable housing on Bainbridge Island. So don't want to mandate for billions of dollars worth of it, but I do want to be advocating for funding to be coming to us for housing and to our nonprofit partners in the community. And all I'm seeing in the legislative priorities is incentive funding for private developers who I do not believe are going to actually deliver the affordable housing. So it's a little contradictory because on the one hand, I know we're saying, hey, tell us we're not required, but we will need to do something. So I would like us to be able to do both.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to make sure I understand what you're requesting, and that is in the policy document under affordable housing, adding a bullet that says that we support programs like the Housing Trust Fund, the CHIP program, and local options for cities to explore how best to fund housing.
Sure, and expanding, creating new programs, direct subsidies, you name it. But yes, absolutely continue to support all of the existing programs and to enlarge those programs to create public funding. I'm assuming that my colleagues.
I was going to say, is there consensus generally?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Matthews.
No, I first would just second the Deputy Mayor, which is that in addition to having this priority of clarifying the law, which of course would reduce litigation risk and clarify what we're supposed to do, it would be really nice to see in here a desire that they fund affordable housing. Right. I understand that in the current budgetary environment that is unlikely, but I think that is something that we should be pushing for because they've put these mandates out here and I think they do need to fund these things. Beyond that, I do want to say thank you for your excellent work. I really appreciate this. I'm very supportive of everything here. And I'm really glad to see so many cities coming together to say, we need to clarify this law, right? Whichever way it goes, cities need clarity. They need to know what they need to do. They will do it. They just need to know what they need to do, right? Beyond that, I have just a quick question, which is, why is there such a significant revenue shortfall in the operating budget? What is the source of that?
Yeah, great question. The memo that was provided by the Office of Financial Management to state agencies cited a few different reasons. The first was inflationary costs. Population growth has been, I think they said 14%. The state has faced a large number of court settlements where the court has found that the state, through one of its agencies, has committed a wrongdoing and therefore has a settlement to pay out. Last session alone, that was over $1 billion that had to be allocated to liability and settlements. And then there's been a reduction in federal funding going to the state budget. So there's a tranche of funding that comes from the federal government into the state budget, gets allocated out through the state budget, and that funding has reduced. So those were the I think you all receive a monthly report. The OFM memo is linked in that monthly report. You all should have gotten it last week. Or if that's too hard to find, I'm happy to send the OFM memo out to you all directly following up on this.
Thanks, Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Matthews, then Councilmember Lamb.
Thanks so much, Mayor. I also support Deputy Mayor's first comment. And then I was wondering, in our policy statement or policy document, you mentioned something in your introduction about schools and about aligning some of our goals with our school district. I know I've run into our superintendent in Olympia advocating a few times. And so I would be interested in having something like that in there. I don't know about my colleagues. And also, there's so many challenges right now. I'm hearing from many folks on the island about early childhood education and child care. And so maybe we could put those together. But that would be, I think, great to see, because that does, I think, as much as we can align with some of the other state priorities, would be really good in the budgetary ones. And then I had a question about our capital budget requests. A few legislative priority document or a few documents ago, I can't believe we've had a several-year relationship and really successful. Well, really glad that you're here with us on different outcomes. But I was wondering, we are most likely building a project on city-owned land, but I don't see any budget requests for it in here this year. I know our legislators are waiting for it. They've been aware of it for several years. So is there room to include that in this document?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we left the document as a placeholder is to get your all's input on the type of project you all want to advance. My understanding is that there's a request that's likely to be made forward by your partner on the project, and the process that will occur from a timeline standpoint is that an application will be submitted to the Housing Trust Fund. And then whatever the balance of the remaining funding need is after the Housing Trust Fund has made their award would be the request to the legislature. And the request to the legislature would be to fund the Housing Trust Fund award plus whatever that additional dollar amount is. So there's not a known funding amount, but if you all want to add that as the request you want to focus on this next session, that's the direction that you all can choose to provide.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. I really appreciate these updates, especially as we ourselves are heading into some budget conversations. It really gives a great picture of what we should be expecting and how we should self-manage. So I appreciate you showing up early and getting us on your docket early. To follow up on what Councilmember Matthews said, what are the opportunities for intergovernmental, Bainbridge Island intergovernmental working together, the different agencies, so the school district, the fire department, us, of course?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that to the extent that cities tend to coordinate with their community partners in legislative activities, that does tend to happen at the city hall level rather than at the lobbyist level. So in other communities where that's occurring, I'll get direction that says, hey, we had our regional discussion on legislative efforts and here's like, put these items in the policy document. This is what our other regional agencies are working on. So that tends to be more from the ground up rather than something that's coordinated from the legislative advocacy angle down.
Wonderful, thank you. And one last question, and that is on the policy, the legislative policy document under utilities and infrastructure. I see that there's still an item on there, a bullet point that we've instructed you, requested you to keep your eye on, and that is support legislation clarifying that the city can assume responsibility for providing solid waste management service without being required to provide payment to a solid waste hauler. How do we, what's the process? I mean, I guess there's a question for the mayor, interim city manager. How are we at this point going to be adding and pulling from these documents?
Thank you, Councilmember Land. I think the intention today was to hear from Brianna and Kyle and to take any questions that you might have. Certainly, if you'd like to make changes, you can make those by motion tonight. We'll also bring those back. The motion does, in the packet, does say that you're endorsing these. I think a more appropriate motion would be to forward them for further consideration. If you're ready to make amendments tonight, of course, that's helpful. If you'd prefer to do it at a subsequent meeting, that's fine too.
Further comment? Oh, sorry. Councilmember Farrell Johnson, since your hand. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you both for coming and giving us this briefing. I wanted to ask you about the item that's listed under the fast ferries and ferry line management and try to find out, have you heard anything about fast ferries coming for Bainbridge?
I have not. No, I think that we have been supporting your local legislators, Representative Nance's efforts to establish a mosquito fleet to help create a more reliable ferry system-wide, which would increase reliability of your current service and perhaps far into the future provide fast ferry service to the island. But there is nothing urgent, imminent, or near term.
Okay, thank you. And as far as this expanded into hybrid and electric, I'm just wondering how much, it says increased investment, how much investment do you believe is going to be happening at this period, this legislative period? Is it significant or is it just, because if they're running out of money, I guess I'm just wondering if there's going to be.
It's a great question, and I'm going to try and speak off the top of my head, but I may need to follow up offline. The legislature allocated Climate Commitment Act dollars to convert 2 existing ferries and to build 3 new hybrid electric ferries. With that funding that was allocated through the Climate Commitment Act, the legislature proceeded forward with the conversion of 1 ferry and has entered into a contract for the construction of the 3 hybrid electric ferries. The governor has since put a pause on the conversion of any further hybrid electric ferries, primarily, or the stated reason was to ensure there was not going to be a ferry out of service during the World Cup. Whether or when that pause is removed remains undetermined. And there's a lot of dialogue around how or whether the state funds future hybrid electric ferries, whether that is through the same path that they've gone through to contract for the current 3, or whether they want to switch gears and either identify non-hybrid electric ferries or alternative revenue sources to bring more ferries online for the system. And I'm happy to follow up in writing. I am speaking off the top of my head from memory, which is dangerous.
It's okay. When you check on it, can you also find out what the impact of those electric ferries will be on the manpower? Will it require less or more, or because I think that's a big issue for our ferries is
For cruise, you mean?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda. Before we go to the second round of questions, we're about 45 minutes behind our regular agenda. And there's a lot more questions. I think the suggestion from the interim city manager is to move this forward to another meeting, and we can have further discussion, perhaps. Councilmember Nelson.
Just one brief thought, which was on the capital funding request placeholder. I wanted to know what the status was of the Manzanita Watershed Aquifer Recharge Project. Are we losing the grant as a result of being late with the comprehensive plan? Because if we are, it could be something that makes sense to request here, and that's my only thought.
We have not heard from Ecology. We continue to let them know that we are making significant progress and substantial progress, and we are planning to get our comprehensive plan done just as soon as humanly possible. So not yet.
I would suggest that the good news is that we haven't heard anything is good news. Councilmember Lant.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move that we move this conversation about legislative priorities and policies for the 2027 state legislative session to another future study session or business meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilmember Lant and seconded by Councilmember Nelson to move this to a future study session. Further discussion on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Council votes 6-0 and the chair votes aye 7-0. Thank you, Council, and thank you so much, Brianna and Kyle. Really great work. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. See you again soon.
Right. Now move to item 7B, discuss ordinance number 2026-05, adopting and implementing regulations for the updated comprehensive plan and Winslow sub-area plan. We've allocated 45 minutes for this discussion item. So presentation.
Yes, I have just a few introductory comments. Before we leave the last item, I do note that you move this to a future study session. We only have one study session a month, and some of them are kind of full. So if it's okay with council, if a business meeting would be acceptable, we may, we'll certainly run it by you, but then it might also allow public comment at a business meeting if you're okay with discussing the legislative priorities at a future business
Without jumping
meeting.
ahead, I would think that the deputy mayor and I would be open to better management.
Oh, did she say or? Okay.
Or, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just heard the mayor sort of circle in on one, but it sounds like the deputy mayor has something.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
comment on.
And I also wanted to encourage them to feel that it's fine to appear by Zoom as well after they came all the way out for us. And if we are throwing another meeting their way, that, just.
It is a way, right?
Yeah. Just to confirm that in future meetings, perhaps our lobbyists could attend via Zoom.
Well, yeah.
If you'd like to. Although we did very much enjoy seeing you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure the restaurants enjoy your visits, Bridget. All right.
Okay, excuse the slight detour there. Council, the next item on your business is ordinance 2026-05, which is the ordinance that adopts changes to the city's development regulations in the municipal code, specifically in Titles 17 and 18. Tonight, we're bringing this ordinance back for further discussion. We expect and anticipate that you will make some motions tonight. And staff will capture those and bring those back in a future version of this ordinance. We by no means expect that this will be the last time that this ordinance is discussed by the council. There are two motions in the packet that I'd like to draw your attention to. One is that you move this forward to a future meeting. We are planning to bring this with your changes to the Planning Commission in August and then bring it back to you in September. The reason for this is that these are making changes to Title 18 of the municipal code. Those changes must be considered by the Planning Commission before they come back to the City Council. So again, I apologize for the delay. We are working hard to get this done just as quickly as we can, but we also need to do it in compliance with our own code and with state law. So letting you know that we'll take your changes today. We will take those back to the Planning Commission and then come back in September or October or just as soon as we can. We are also, there's a second motion asking you to direct staff to work with the Planning Commission to work on mandatory inclusionary zoning. This is something that came out of the code at the last meeting. We understand from the council and from other members of the community and the Planning Commission that you'd be interested in having us work on that as expeditiously as possible. It's possible that we could work on that in such a manner as it would come back before the development regulations need to be finalized. And so that might be a way to accomplish the goals that we're hearing clearly that council would like staff to work on. So tonight we'll be taking your changes. We will also have some changes that we are making or suggesting for the Planning Commission and then the council to consider based on changes to state law. And also want to let you know at this time that we are in active communication with Commerce. Our interim planning director, Emily Terrell, has spent many emails and phone calls with staff already. We continue to meet with them regularly to keep them up to date and make sure that we are doing as much as we can to keep them informed of our progress and to ask questions along the way. And then my final note is that as you make changes, we are eagerly waiting for the time where this ordinance, we are eagerly waiting for the time when you've given us all our changes and we can then be ready to run the final land capacity analysis. If you make changes tonight to floor area ratio or lot coverage, we will review those with our consultants to see if we need to run a new land capacity analysis for you. And just as sort of a planning mechanism for your own time as we think about this, that can take roughly 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the challenge of the changes that are made. So with that, our interim planning director is also here, has a couple of brief comments, and then we are ready to take your changes and support your discussion.
Thank you very much, Interim City Manager. I do have, in fact, just brief comments and then expect that there may be more coming back. As I noted in my presentation from June 23rd, in order to declare compliance with the Growth Management Act, we have to be up to date with all of the current legislation that has gone through. When we originally did our checklists for commerce, those checklists were written for 2023 and 2024. Since then, we have had a couple of legislative sessions. And in fact, the most recent one ended last month, which means new laws have come through. And so we are working to create the changes in our code that are absolutely required by state code. It is not staff's intention to bring in substantive changes that are not specifically required by state code, but they definitely need to go back before the Planning Commission. So it is our hope that we can have this discussion about this ordinance later after we've had an opportunity to come through the Planning Commission. And also we thought as long as we're going back to the Planning Commission, we don't, whether it's through council motions or just because we have to because it's state law, that this would be an opportunity for us to go back and clarify that mandatory inclusionary zoning set of assumptions. We've spoken with our consultants as recently as today to talk to them about what are the parameters that they have put together, what might change and how long that might take. And in fact, it will probably take them about 6 weeks. We wish that we could be done sooner. We all wish that we could be done sooner, but what I want to make clear is that everything that will change in subdivision or zoning codes that would be required for review by Commerce will also be reviewed by the Planning Commission and come back to you.
All right. Good. All right. Opening this up for discussion from council, it would be the best way to work our way down. I think everyone has a comment. So if that's all right with the council, I'll start from the end of the day and work through. Councilmember Scheider.
Thank you, Mayor. Emily, I just am with regards to your last comments about 6 weeks for another land capacity analysis. This puts us at odds with trying to meet deadlines, does it not?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Okay. So we just need to take that into account. And could I ask that regardless of what we, when we're talking about something, can you please let us know, yes, that will trigger this extra 6 week
Well, I can say that the LCA for going back to just February is probably fine. If we start changing floor area ratios, lot coverages, parking assumptions and other things like that, we're going to need to go back before our planning commission, and we're going to have to go back for the LCA because it changes our projections for whether or not we can meet our buildable lands requirements and our affordable housing requirements by income band. So that's what we're concerned about. The thing that you have to do in order to be compliant with that is to prove that you were able to meet the housing and jobs quotas, and then also to break down that housing by income band. So if our assumptions that went into these things for floor area, for affordable housing percentages, for density bonuses change, that means that we have to go back to the model. And also if those change in certain places. So the consultant tells me today that we have a parametric model, which basically means the GIS and the Excel model are talking to each other. So we should be able to make those changes as assumptions because they are inputs to an algorithm, essentially. But they have to be able to go through the algorithm. The one thing that is difficult for them to quantify is the mandatory inclusionary zoning, because most places do in fact do it by unit rather than by the size of the parcel itself. So that's a methodology that is not as well trodden, and it will require us to really think it through and to work with Commerce to make sure that they agree with our assumptions, how that translates.
So does that mean then that if we do make a recommendation to direct staff to bring back a different mandatory inclusionary zoning ordinance, that would trigger the delay? Is that true?
It may. It depends upon what you ask us to do. If it is sufficiently covered in the way they have created their assumptions, that delay might not be there. But they specifically said to us, we don't know how to quantify the mandatory inclusionary zoning as it is currently presented, because it was done based on parcel size rather than unit type. And when they're going through how others have achieved those densities with a similar program, no one else has provided it the way that Bainbridge asked for it.
Okay, so maybe if you could just make sure that you keep us honest and let us know what you think might likely trigger said capacity now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Council, we've already blown through 15 minutes and we have at least a half hour more of motions. So we have a lot of questions to ask. So we would be good of our time and try to keep our answers and questions concise as possible. And would you please move the mic closer, but you're being very hard to hear you.
Closer to the
Right,
mic.
or move the podium up or whatever, that works. Okay, so let's try to be as clear and concise as possible for the remainder of the meeting. Councilmember Lambton Nelson will work our way down the dais.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor. I recognize today we had a lot of comments during public comment that talked both in support of the original Planning Commission's recommendations, as well as support for yet one more alternative that hasn't been vetted by the Planning Commission nor staff, nor the public. And as much as I could consider supporting those kind of alternatives, there just has been zero input. And so at this time, I think it's important that we stick to the conversations and the recommendations that have already come before us. The Planning Commission reviewed the ordinance. This is Ordinance 2026-05 in detail and unanimously recommended that version May 21st. These recommendations were developed through the Commission's public hearing process, meaning that they've already been subject to lengthy public review and deliberation. And restoring the ordinance to the Commission's recommended version is going to honor the process. It's going to avoid the unnecessary delays that we're discussing right now. And it's going to help keep the city on the schedule to submit its updated comprehensive plan to Commerce, therefore protecting some of those projects that we are worried about losing funding for. So in that spirit, I would like to move to amend.
Councilmember Land, may I interrupt? Since we have staff here, I would like to use this time to use questions to her, and then I will welcome motions. Let's be valuable with this person's time. So I will gladly entertain that, but I would like to use this time for questions with the staff at this time and then motions later. Let clarify questions.
Okay, then let me ask this question. The planning recommendation of May 21st, in your opinion, is that the recommendation that will be approvable in a timeline that will get us across the finish line that we're hoping to do?
Some of it depends upon when we can get across the finish line overall for the comprehensive plan, and we'll talk about that here in 2 items. Again, what we're required from Commerce is to show that we can meet our buildable lands targets for employment and housing, and that we can do that by income band. When we move back to the February analysis, we showed that we were able to meet those things at the assumptions for FAR and other things then. That was without an analysis of the mandatory inclusionary zoning. So just in terms of raw numbers, we can meet it with or without mandatory inclusionary zoning, which means that is whatever benefit we get from that from affordable housing is above and beyond what we absolutely have to do for our minimum. Then the question is, what is the goal for affordable housing? But in terms of just being able to meet it in timeline, we should not have to do another LCA if we stay at the February numbers. And in the May numbers, I mean,
City Manager.
I think,
am I wrong?
the question that Councilmember Lant is asking is about the floor area ratio and lot coverage that was included in the May 21st version of the ordinance. And so in our interim planning director's defense, she was not with us at that time. So I think she may not have those exact numbers with her. We also know that we have not had a land capacity analysis run on exactly those assumptions, so we won't be able to definitively say based on that. Recognize you were asking for opinion, but we would probably need to come back to you with that information after Darren and Emily have had a chance to work through those, although I do see Darren up at the podium, so there may be a quick answer to this.
Darren Buchanan, Planning Manager. I want to make sure I understand the question. It was based off the May 21st numbers. So LMN, when they ran the LCA that was pulled weeks ago at this point, I can't remember, we would not meet the requirements based off of those numbers from what Planning Commission recommended. LMN did not run a full LCA on those numbers. That work was done by staff to try to, because the timeline wasn't quick enough, or it was too quick enough, excuse me. LMN didn't have enough time to run a full analysis. So what we thought Planning Commission was doing by bumping it, ended up not creating a 112 unit deficit, I believe. But the full analysis has not been ran on those numbers. So I believe we also still would look at 6 weeks if we went back to that and ran those numbers again.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson Matthews and Deputy Mayor Hytop.
Yeah, so follow up on Councilmember Land's question there. When the June LCA was done, what was assumed as far as max FAR was the 2.5. That was originally what council had set. And I think the question that Councilmember Land is asking is whether the Planning Commission's recommendations would actually meet the requirements. That would mean a higher max FAR of 3 in core and 4 in High School Road and Ferry. And so, because the problem with the June one is the utilization rate for the voluntary inclusionary zoning went to 0 when it was at 3 and 5 in Ferry and High School, right, previously. And the question is, if you increase the max FAR to 3 and 4 from the 2.5, does that alone increase the utilization rate to get those units back? Because the previous February LCA, that created 124 units, right? And so that would get over the 110 units. And so we know that if you increase the lot coverage and increase the max FAR, you get there. But what if you just increase the max FAR? And so I think it really is an actual open question of if we go back to the planning commission's actual recommendations, would we get there?
We would have to run the LCA in order to find that out.
Thank you, Councilman Nelson. Councilman Matthews?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll try to be very quick. So I just had two questions and then the super fast comment. So about the MIS, nobody beats the MIS, the mandatory inclusionary zoning. If we did go to a unit-based metric, would that get the analysis done any faster? And would that be a way to get the program in there, at least for planning commission? I know it's going back to planning. I mean, I assume that's the will of the body is for planning commission to work on it. But if we were saying do switch to units instead of acres, would that get it over the hump?
I don't know that they would get it faster, but it would be probably easier for them to run the numbers. But timeline wise, I think you're still looking at the same timeline.
It might be more accurate according to Element.
Okay. So what is the difference between using acres and units? Sorry, sorry.
I think I know.
I mean, in the memo that they noted, the biggest difference is no one does it by acreage. So it's not something that they're familiar with or have other models to run off of. Units is typically what it is ran as. So the biggest difference is they would have to retool their entire modeling to try to take that into account and then try to model it after that, essentially.
Okay. And if I think just to go back to last meeting, there's something out there that we want to, don't care about affordable housing because we wanted to get rid of it. And I think there was a motion after the motion, which was to have like a moratorium or something like that. So it just wasn't left without the program. So I just wanted to clarify that for the community because of some misinformation. And I just ask that the community assumes good intent of us. There's no one up here working to make money and all of these things that are out there. And I'm a realtor in disguise. I literally die yarn. It's not a fake job. You can't fake do that. Like, it's not like I can pretend I die yarn. I die hard. So anyhow, and then my next question is on the DEI, the SEPA.
That is for a later agenda item.
Oh, okay, cool. That's a question.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Deputy Mayor Hightower.
Yeah, I'm going to try to be succinct and not mix up comments with questions because I want to get somewhere very specific. I think just in response, though, to Councilmember Matthews, the policy difference between the acres and the units, which was so important to the Planning Commission, which I will continue to lobby here for today, is that it's a matter of saying that the defining issue is protecting our largest parcels from being, developed to being underdeveloped, being developed to market rate when that we could have been able to extract affordable. And so I'm going to be very, very supportive of us figuring out how to send it back to Planning Commission to wrestle with either figuring out how to do this, it's got to be doable, or somehow figure out how to translate that to units. But if we hamstring them with units, we're cutting off the major policy issue here, which is that with these larger ones, we do mandatory inclusionary zoning. So what I guess I wanted to understand is, and you may not be able to answer precisely, but my understanding was there's a fair amount of work that no matter what, and that's what we've heard, needs to be done back at the Planning Commission anyway. It's very important for the council to understand that some stuff is already going back to Planning Commission. There are steps, there is time that will be expended. And so what we're looking at right now as we decide whether to prioritize this work now is how much longer will it be for us to ask Planning Commission to look at you, to work with you and L&M to figure out if it can be done by acres, right? It's not a matter of no delay versus a delay. It's a matter of we're not sure yet how much additional delay it could cost. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I hope we'll keep an eye on the idea that we could always go back to our previous recommendation. I want to appreciate staff trying to get this done for us. I'd like to take advantage of it. We can always go back to an interim control if we can't do it right this time, rather than do it in a way that doesn't achieve our policy goals.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Pamela Johnson, would you like to weigh in here?
No, I agree. I guess I'm just trying to understand why would we do something that's going to take a longer time and delay us? I want to make sure that we're not trying to figure something out when we already have a way to do it.
That was a statement, not a
One
question.
statement. Sorry.
I gather as much. Thank you, Councilmember. And we're at the 20-minute mark and we have a lot of motions. So are there further questions before we go into motions, or are there other things that we need to bring up at this time? I just have one follow-up, or at least comment, and following up perhaps on Councilmember Matthews. The problem that I had with the 2 acres, not all 2 acres are alike. Not all 2 acres are the same. And I think if it was more, what is the actual buildable area? Because a 2 acre lot might have some wetlands or might have some sort of steep slope of which it may not be buildable. So it's not a one size fits all. That's the concern I had. And I'm so for inclusionary zoning, but we have to be careful on something like that because you just can't broad brush a 2 acre because not all 2 acres are equal. So it should be perhaps buildable 2 acres total or something of that sort that can actually make this a tool that might really work. But I don't know. I think that's a little bit too broad, and it might really lead to a lot of problems on how something might fit that we're asking them to do. Might be the affordable housing might be an outhouse size, or who knows. So that's the concern I had about that, and perhaps the unit way is to go, but that's a discussion we can have moving forward. So I would think now with the time we have left, we should start on motions if that's what good with the body. Councilmember Lant.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor. So as you heard me say earlier, I'd like to move to amend Ordinance 2026-05 by restoring it to the version recommended by the Planning Commission on May 21st, 2026.
Second.
It's moved and seconded by Councilmember Lant and seconded by Councilmember Nelson. Discussion, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I know this isn't going to pass, but I support the motion. I would have liked to have seen it happen. I will vote for it.
And further discussion. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Lant.
Councilmember Lant, can I just clarify with my colleague that by the Planning Commission recommendation, she does mean the higher max FAR of 3 and 4 versus 2.5?
I can support that. I'm really interested in the version that gave us the most units and has had the most public participation and review. Does that answer your question?
Can I respond?
Then you had your point. Councilmember Matthews, you were next.
Councilmember, I really appreciate Councilmember Lant's proposal, and I'm struck by something that I can't remember where we heard it. It was somewhere where someone was saying that after their comp plan process or something like that, the community gathered and some folks, everyone was a little unhappy, and that made it that it had been a successful process, and that there was compromise made. And so I think it might be really important for all of us to end up a little bit unhappy. And so in that spirit, I was wondering if maybe there's something that we can adjust with your motion up 1 point, and really work and drill down those numbers to get to a point of consensus. I'm willing to try.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Lant.
I think the last thing this council should do is any more tweaking of significant code up here. We're not the experts. We're less expert. We're way less expert than our experts. We're less expert than Planning Commission. I wouldn't want to do that. I do, of course, appreciate the idea of compromise, and I kind of like what I'm hearing here. And I'm not saying it would be appropriate for us to do it on a dime, but what we really are hearing about is the idea, I think, from Councilmember Nelson, that we basically this would be a compromise. We would get rid of the council's motion for the 2.5 max. That's a big compromise for those of us who think 3 and 4 are way too big. But we then would get back, but then we would presumably gain enough additional units because of that significantly higher availability, while having been able to retain some of the things like lot coverage and the programmatic stuff, et cetera, that they recommended. So that's an interesting compromise that doesn't do a whole lot, because all it really does is it gives us an entirely vetted body of work, and then simply tweaks up the 3 and 4, which again makes my hair stand on end, but we're already there. I mean, this council has already taken us there. So it's a compromise then.
Councilmember Nelson and Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, no, to my colleague, Councilmember Matthews, my idea is actually a compromise because to the deputy mayor's point, it's the lower base FAR, but it's the higher max FAR, right? And then not changing the lot coverage, right? So instead of the 2.5 max FAR, it's the 3 in core and 4 in high school and ferry, which is very, very, very dense, right? And I understand the deputy mayor's comment, but we know from the June land capacity analysis that if we run the planning commission's recommendations where the max FAR is 2.5, we're not going to get there. It's going to be 110 units short. But presumably, if we go to the higher max FAR, we actually do get back the 124 units from the voluntary inclusionary zoning program. And so we do get there. And sort of what my side gets is the lower base FAR, right? And so it is very much a compromise idea. And I'm so strongly in favor of it. I think, I wouldn't even make my other motion because I think this is where I would prefer that we go as a body. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. And also, again, just to put this in the overarching context of public participation, years went into developing this recommendation from the planning. I mean, literally years went into this recommendation, and the planning was not, though it was a very unanimous decision on a recommendation on their part, and there was a lot of compromise. Not all of them were happy with how far this went or how far it went. So they struggled with it. They have had public hearings. The public has had some robust opportunities to participate, to comment, to chime in. This is not a deviation from the plan or the process. This is exactly the plan and the process. So I really feel strongly that we need to not just honor the process and the state, the law and our code, but this is their recommendation. This is what's going to get us across the line, certainly faster and more transparently than any other iteration that is coming forward. I also appreciate that it's a group effort, and it is not one individual driving recommendations. It is many people with many different viewpoints taking a stand of compromise, looking at what's best for our city, understanding, again, that upzoning can always happen. You can always continue to make more density. You cannot reduce that density after the fact. And if we can slow it down, that I think is what our community wants. And we can still achieve the density that we're required to have with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Land. Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
I guess I'm wondering that this is still going back to the planning commission, right? For their recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, point of information.
Deputy Mayor Topoulos.
How difficult would it be for staff to give us sort of any, just if there's an obvious black and white response that like, no, the reason, like at 2.5, it wasn't working because, the lot coverage was the issue. So going up higher, is there an obvious answer, or is this something that we could ask staff to report back to us at next week's meeting? I mean, first, and I would just say, we would never, none of us, I'd hope, would want to make this sort of a dramatic of a shift without a pause, feedback, and come back, right? I mean, because it wouldn't be a sustainable vote. And I'm just wondering whether staff has any idea whether taking all those other recommendations and just bringing the FAR, the max FAR up to 3 and 4. So basically undoing our tweaking of the 2.5 reduction.
City Manager.
We're going to try to bring up the table on page 4, just so we all know what we're talking about. Okay. Because I'm sort of losing track of what we're talking about to make sure that we are looking at the right thing. And so this is from the memo which staff requested that we withdraw from the packet. However, I believe that these numbers are correct. This is page 2 from the memo from LMN, page 4, table 2. And the numbers on the right-hand side are what are called June direction, or the May 21st Planning Commission guidance. And this is what they used to run their LCA on. So if you're talking about these numbers, it would be really helpful if we could just refer to this and you could tell us which ones you think you're changing. And then the city clerk and I have a fighting chance of accurately accurately capturing council's actions. And the planning director is here. She can respond to these if you have specific questions. But again, we're not going to be able to probably give you much definitive things, but maybe some directional help if you wanted to ask your question, if I'm pointing her towards the right information.
And all I can truly add to that is if we didn't run the LCA on it, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
I didn't quite catch that.
If we didn't already run an LCA on the assumptions that you can see, and we're talking about ones that we haven't, then we'll have to go back to our consultant and ask to do it again.
All right. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then.
So I have a comment in addition to pointing out that I believe we're talking about just max bonus mixed use FAR, all those shifts back to the 3 and 4 and leaving everything else intact. And I want to make a comment, which is my understanding, and I'm really sorry if I'm misstating anything, but is that Planning Commission thought they were dealing with a formal land capacity analysis, was they were making a lot of decisions. And in fact, it was an internal staff attempt. And quite frankly, I don't think we should be deprived of having an appropriate land capacity analysis. So if we felt like we're right, if this council felt like, wow, we're really close here, we may be able to effectuate basically everything Planning Commission wanted to do, make this tweak, which is actually what they wanted to do before we messed with the 2.5 issue. And we want a land capacity analysis. I think that we should be supported in that, and we should figure out how that can be done in the timeline we have to act.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, no, and I think this table is really, really helpful. So what we are talking about is all the numbers on the right in bold, except for in the max bonus mixed use FAR, it's the 3.0, the 4.0 in core and high school and ferry, right? And this, the reason this is so important is because the 2.5 was us, council, reducing that. And in fact, the Planning Commission made a motion asking that we reconsider that. Ben Dinez said very impassioned that we please reconsider increasing it back to 3 and 4. And interestingly, in my view, I think that that change alone is the difference between compliant and non-compliant. And I really think that we owe it to the Planning Commission, to the Deputy Mayor's point, to actually run a real land capacity analysis on their actual recommendation, because we have not to date done that. And I think that that would be a very appropriate thing, especially given that this was taken, you know, 1.5 years, 2 years. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Nelson. For discussion before I make a comment, I can't remember why we went to 2.5. Why was that decision? Help me with that. I'm remembering it kind of, but yeah. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Because we had heard from people in the community that 2.5 was viable for the projects that we want. And 3 and 4 are very large. 4.0 FAR is, you know, lot line to lot line, 4 stories high. I mean, obviously it's more complex than that, but I think it makes sense for us to, it was a very dramatic upzoning. Now, if in fact what happens is this, you know, has this, you know, provides affordable housing, you have to do X, Y, and Z and everything like that, and every single lot is going to go to 3 and 4, you know, I guess we can wrap our head around it. Again, it is a compromise that I would never have imagined myself making, but this is where we are.
Thank you. Just a follow comment, that's been persuasive comments, especially from Councilman Nelson, so I appreciate your input. Any other comments on the motion? So this motion would be on the maximum bonus mixed use floor area ratio. It'd return it back to the original recommendations as opposed to reducing to 2.5. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just to take a breath, Councilman Scheider.
Okay, so I understand the 3 and the 4. What are we changing then? Is it because we're getting rid of the base? So if someone could just speak to what the differences are, what are we?
It looks like Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos has an answer for you.
there's a lot of stuff here, right? If you look at the shifts, right, this is where we're shifting back one and we're leaving a whole bunch of other shifts. There's lot coverage, there's base FAR. I mean, I could be missing other things. I don't know. But the point is, I guess that's the largest thing, and those are big, right? The lot coverage issue is huge. And in the compromise proposal that maybe all of us have received from someone in the community, where it was a real genuine attempt to try to find a compromise, that was an important give that was going to go back in the direction. Lot coverage is a big deal. And so just think of it like we are doing what a lot of people have asked, which is let's do what the planning commission asked us to. If all we have to do is undo what we did, the 2.5 to 3.4, and it got us just enough units to get us back into compliance, then we could maintain the rest of the scheme that they worked so hard on. Because they had conversations about the interplays between things like height and lot coverage and FAR, right? And all the decisions they made about programmatic things relate to something they built. So think of it like we're just giving back to the planning commission vision, the 3 and the 4 FAR.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. And so I appreciate so much of the Planning Commission's work. I spent I think 3 or 4 years of my life volunteering on the Planning Commission. And so I know how hard they work as a body, and as well as being liaison with Councilmember Lant and witnessing it often, how late into the evenings with young dads and moms and that sort of thing. So I get it. I also sat and listened to a lot of their discussion around the 1.0 base FAR, and they were split and they were close and they were different motions. And I think we can all go through and read the packet. So I am still really working for this compromise. But for me, the 1.0 base, as that Councilmember Nelson has in his proposal, is important. For me, just because of listening to, that wasn't a planning commission direction of, no, we don't want 1.0. They were really working for consensus. So I really feel like we're really close and we're doing really good work. So just keep it.
Okay, Councilmember Nelson, continue.
Yeah, just on the base FAR, I mean, I just think it is really important that they were never able to pass a motion to recommend 1.0 base FAR. And what you see on the screen here of the sort of 0.7 in Ferry and 0.6 in high school, that was the compromise they came to, because it is higher than where we started, but not all the way up to 1, right? So I think they were really, I mean, they were just fine-tuned, right? Really close in, trying to calibrate it just perfectly to get there. And so I just want to respect that work so much. And I just really think that I also think that if we really go back to their recommendation, maybe we don't even need to send it back to the planning commission again. Maybe we just, do we still have to? Okay, that's okay. All right, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you. So for clarification on Councilmember Nelson's, the second line base mixed use floor area ratio for the Ferry Terminal District, and what was the original? Does anybody have that fact? What was the original base use floor area ratio for those two zones? Councilmember Nelson?
Yeah, it was originally 0.5 in Ferry and 0.3 in high school.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Got my hand up.
Sorry, Councilmember Franklin Johnson. Not ignoring you, just don't look up there that often.
I guess my question is, okay, from the motion, it's going to change everything and not just the max bonus mixed fair use. It's going to change the core from none to 0.4. Everything that's in bold is what we're talking about, this change for all of them. Is that right? That's what this motion would do.
I think in the aggregate, yeah, and it was focused mostly on the max bonus mixed use floor area ratio to return it back to the original planning commission recommendations.
There's other areas like the lot coverage that's now going to go from 60% to 35% and 100% to 75%. Is it going to change everything in this table?
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos?
Well, I think it's, it's, how do you want to phrase it? It's changing it back to what their most recent recommendation was.
Yeah,
So it's
I understand that.
changing it, but it's basically, it's undoing what we've done. Several things now that we've done. We're going back and we're saying, we go back to their recommendation and we pull off the 2.5, that's what we get. So, I mean, I would say, to be fair, yes, it's changing it, but yeah, it's
I
reverting.
guess my problem is that we're changing it all at once without talking about each one of them and what will it give us?
Okay, Councilmember Matthews, then.
And as I recall, the original planning commission standards were not compliant. So it feels like we're going back to a non-compliant minus the lot coverage.
Okay, let's not.
Sorry, yeah, that's a question, yeah.
That question that was a direct question. So is that a correct statement?
Planning Manager Darren Buchanan. Yes, that is correct. So the memo that's on the screen now, the executive summary, is what was pulled weeks ago. However, in that memo or the executive summary, it does state that there will be a deficit. I believe table 5 shows the numbers of the actual deficit of roughly 112 units, I believe. That's also including the 164 unit surplus that they created with the 2 acres or larger mandatory inclusionary zoning that they made a guesstimate essentially. But that's correct. So I'm trying to follow along. If you are saying going back to the planning commission's recommendation, that still would be a deficit.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson.
But what was analyzed was 2.5 max FAR. We're talking about changing to 3 and 4.
Which is why I said I was trying to follow along.
Thank you. That's what I said. I thought
Yeah.
maybe you were, so because so am I correct? I mean, you're correct that if we go back just to where they wound up, we have a problem. We're talking about going back to what they wound up with and then taking away our direction of the 2.5 max FAR and putting 3 and 4 in those spots. We have not analyzed that. Right?
Correct. We don't know what that answer would be right now.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, and to that point, but by reducing the max FAR to 2.5, we created a situation where the utilization rate for the voluntary inclusionary zoning was 0, meaning we expected 0 units to be created from the voluntary inclusionary program, right? Zoning program. So by putting it back at 3 and 4, presumably you're going to get those 124 units that originally showed in the February. And I'll leave it there. I'm not.
Thank you. Yeah, that point's been made. Thank you. Councilmember Schreiber.
We have to send this back to the planning commission anyway. So why are we trying to second guess or I don't understand. I mean, why can't we just send this back to them and say, we all want the same thing. We all want to have the right numbers pan out for commerce and let the planning commission figure it out. So I guess I'm going to have to vote no because I'm just kind of confused and it just seems like we're doing a lot of legislating here.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Because we're at a point where it is getting so late that we have to step up and show leadership and say, this is what we want to do, but not meddle. This is why this is a really great solution. I mean, because when Councilmember Fantroy Johnson was asked, well, why don't we go line by line and ask, right? Yeah, what we're talking about potentially doing is if we give the direction to Planning Commission, they need a product to actually work with. Like staff can't have us asking them to ask fundamental questions again. If we say we want staff and Planning Commission to work with Planning Commission's original full recommendation, including the max that bonus FAR that they wanted, then we've told them what to work with rather than keeping an open door. I mean, we can hear from staff about that, but I mean, we're really late, right? So we're simultaneously showing a firm direction, but we're not getting in where we shouldn't have before, muddling line by line with like an FAR here and a lot coverage here. They did all that work comprehensively. So we're giving them back their product. And that is an act of leadership that I think we owe them, us, and the process, as opposed to an open-ended question. I don't think that anybody could work with an open-ended question right now.
Councilor Matthews and Councilmember Scheider.
Thanks, Mayor. I am going to vote no on this as well. I would like to see this go back to the Planning Commission. As someone coming from the Planning Commission, I know we got direction from council that we changed things that we had said or the council didn't agree with, or some folks on council voted against things. Like, you know, affordable housing on church properties or things like that, so I think there is room for that. And they were asking us when some of their motions for direction on the 1.0 base FAR. So I don't see them feeling any sort of way that we are imposing or that that I think is leadership. So I would support them leaving it as is and then asking for a mandatory inclusionary zoning program.
And before we go on, we've run out of time. I'm going to add an additional 30 minutes for this item on the agenda. Councilmember Scheider, then Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Land. Oh, Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Councilmember Schneider, which is that the reason is because we changed this, right? The Planning Commission created a set of recommendations. We then changed it a lot. And then what we're going to send back to them is what we changed. Whereas if we just go back to what they did, we're sending it back to them to look again at what they did and make sure that it's compliant. And I think that's just a really, really reasonable thing for us to do, is to actually check whether what they did was compliant. And so I don't know. I'm definitely going to support this. I hope my colleagues do too.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Land.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess I'd like to point out to Councilmember Matthews that while you were on the Planning Commission, I don't believe that there was a comprehensive plan update happening with the same tight timeline that we have found ourselves in. And so I think that it's really imperative. Also, I'll chime in with something that I hear over and over, which is we've got a parking lot of things that Planning Commission will be doing next year. There will be opportunities in the future to make updates to this comprehensive plan. Once we get something across the finish line, we still have opportunities to make amendments to this. So again, using the same refrain that I've heard for work that I'd like to see a little different, there's always opportunities to make changes in the future. But I think we're under a real deadline. I think that, again, public participation in what we're talking about right now has been tremendous, much more robust than any other preference that has or alternative that's come before us yet. And we need to think about what the public can accept, what they can work with, as well as respecting the Planning Commission's work. And again, that they've been working on this literally for years. And so I think what we've got in front of us is something that is a huge compromise.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Well, I'll chime in. Thank you for the reminder of how we got back to 2.5, because it's my recollection that that was what some people in the community said that would be the minimum we would need for the housing project. And so therefore, there are some who are not so in favor of more development or more growth, or however you wanted to characterize that point of view, that, well, this is a way to reduce the floor area ratio and you can have lower buildings. I wanted, and I'm glad we had this discussion because I was not that supportive of the lowering. I thought we do needed that cap, but this is where the council went. And I think it's good that we are character building here and realizing that we were the ones who made this problem. I don't know if you want to call it a problem or not, but I'm totally persuaded. I think it's just a simple thing to put taking away those 2.5 on the max bonus mixed use floor area ratio back to the original 3.0 in the core, 4.0 in the Ferry District Terminal, and 4.0 in the High School Road. That's simple. I have no issues with that. So, any other further discussion on this? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have 3 yeas and 3 nays, and the chair votes aye. So the nays are Councilmember Scheider, Councilmember Matthews, and Councilmember Friendly Johnson. Further motions? Sorry. Councilmember Nelson has the light on first. Sorry.
Yeah, I have, this is I'm not gonna make my first one because I'm glad with where we ended on that. My second motion in my packet is I move to add a provision providing that floor area ratio may not exceed 1.5, except where the proposed development is receiving bonus FAR as a result of providing affordable housing. And the reason, wait for a second. Anyone want a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Now we can discuss. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and the reason I'm making this motion is because after we finish this comp plan, we're going to be bringing back the various bonus FAR provisions that aren't related to affordable housing. So these are the provisions that were repealed by Ordinance 2021-10 and have been sort of extended every year, and then we just extended it for another 4 months. And this is things where you get bonus FAR for things like public amenities and or infrastructure, community open space, purchase of development rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And while there's a legitimate reason to allow bonus FAR for certain things like this, I want there to be some cap where we're not giving away the 3 and the 4, except for where we are really providing affordable housing. And so I'm trying to put in place some sort of cap on how high it can go unless they do affordable housing. And so this is something that it's not included anywhere in here. There's no such existing cap, but it's a policy proposal that I'm making today because I really think it is in the public's benefit to reserve that really high FAR for affordable housing.
Thank you, Councilman. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. To me, this is an example of another compromise because I would not have, as everyone may remember, I wouldn't have put back in the bonus FAR actually for so many of those things because I do think that what the community is I think most of the community, not everyone, is willing to compromise on mass of buildings and so forth is when there's actually affordable housing. So I appreciate this because like you said, it will allow double the FAR potentially just for those amenities. And I guess the other thing I was going to say, oh my God, am I going to forget what I was going to say?
You always come back.
Thanks. Yeah, I support it.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. You're going to kill me. I am really sorry. I would like to reconsider the last vote in the spirit of compromise, vote in support.
Oh, that's not possible because you were not on the prevailing side.
Oh.
The only prevailing side can revisit the motion.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like to support that in the spirit of compromise with the Planning Commission, knowing that if they need to get to base 1 FAR for compliance, that's something that they need to do and other things.
Okay. Further discussion on Councilmember Nelson's motion? I'm kind of confused, so I want to hear a little bit more. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Councilmember Scheider.
I think I can support this. It is kind of an interesting proposal. And so it leaves some wiggle room for some creativity, and we don't know what that creativity is going to look like on down the line. But it also provides some confidence out to the community. So I'm going to look to my colleagues for more pros and cons, but at the moment I'm thinking I could support it.
So I think Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos was first, and oh wait, I think Councilmember Franklin Johnson was up, then Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Ladd.
Yeah, I can support it, but I guess I'm wondering, probably like Councilmember Snyder, are there any cons on, for doing this? It is entirely legal, right? We can do this. Put a cap on our FAR when we want to, unless it's affordable housing. I guess I'm asking a legal opinion, maybe.
I guess that goes to our legal person.
Yes, it does. Good evening, City Attorney Andrew Soming. The short answer is yes, it is permissible to place a cap on FAR. I guess my only open-ended question is there anything that's somehow inconsistent in the code? Adoption of this, placing a cap at 1.5, if there's something in the code that has perhaps an excess, there may be an issue there.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, and then Councilmember Ladd.
Yeah,
I guess I want to point out a couple more things. One, unless it's so hard to keep track of where this code has gone, but I think right now the level of amount of affordable housing that even needs to be given is so low, frankly, that setting this bar is pretty reasonable. It's not as though people aren't going to get to the bonus to the max FAR with the way it's currently constructed without, I think it might be only 25% affordable or something like that. So it seems extremely fair. And I guess I just want to point out again, I mean, the question of like pros and cons, we're talking, if we're going back to these lower base FARs, we're talking double the density for like, potentially a plaza, right? So I think I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Topoulos. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. And I'd also like to point out that this isn't necessarily for future new construction, but again, I'll go back to the key apartments. The possibility of redevelopment at that location, going up to a max FAR with that provision that some of that housing, which is currently naturally affordable housing, not affordable housing, quote unquote, it can be preserved or actually codified as affordable housing. So I'm very much in favor of this. I like this motion.
Further discussion, Councilmember Howell Johnson, you're there. And just for clarifying, as I read this, Councilmember Nelson, that the last line is, I think, your point, that a cap on a floor area ratio may be achieved in the absence of providing affordable housing. So that's the point. The incentive is to provide affordable housing to get this. Understood? I'm just reading the language, sir. Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call on the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Votes 6-0. The chair votes aye, 7-0. The motion passes. Is there further motions? Councilmember Nelson?
Am I the only one with motions at this point?
I think you are the only one with motions.
Okay, then what I'm going to do is, how about I just run through them real quick with virtually no discussion?
Yeah, and so I do really mean this, Center in time. We have a motion. If there's no second, we'll move on, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. And yeah, if they could be very good. So this is so I moved to strike the word intensely in the first sentence under central core overlay on page 2 of Exhibit B to Ordinance 2026-05. You can just see it, the red line on there. It's just deleting the word intensely.
Second.
Okay, and just briefly, I just think intensely, given where we're landing on the code, I think it's just more developed. It's not intensely developed, and that's the only reasoning behind it.
Deputy Mayor Topoulos?
So I'm hoping my comment will make it clear how I stand on, I think, all of these motions, but intensely, there's one exception, and that is a planning term. And as long as I think the one place I had a problem was we'll get to that in the ferry terminal area, the ferry district area. There's something that sounded so much, it was just like, it's a really intense. That's a different statement, that even though intense is a planning term, it sounded kind of like a policy statement that's a little strong. But I think every other one of your motions, just heads up from me, it has a meaning, and we're talking about this is more intensely, it's the less intense, and I won't be supporting the removal of intensity.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Matthews?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I was just going to say, because I can remember Planner Sutton. I can hear her. I remember that there was a reason for the word, because it did come up. And I think it is a planning term that goes around activation, and that sort of thing. So
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Franklin Johnson?
Can someone tell us what the reason is? What the definition is for this intensely being there? If it's a planning term, what does it mean?
What was the question? The man on the spot, would you please move forward?
It's been there for 20 years. So I don't know the reason why it's in there as intensely. That's not a proposed change that staff has made. It's what was carried over from the last comp plan. I think it's just comparative to the other zoning areas is what it's trying to explain.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I'm realizing too, actually, will be proposing for each of your motions a slightly different way that keeps the word intensely. So I just want to be clear. So I think when you put in, we'll see as we go forward, a more, and you leave in the intensely, then we're finding a compromise. So Anyway, in this case, I think in this case, you're just, the fact is the third most intensely, isn't that where we are? Is that the motion we're on? Right. In that case, I would vote against this because I think it's okay. It's the third most intensely. It's just being used as a way of referencing it in comparison to other districts. But I just wanted to correct myself on your other motions. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further comments? I'll just add, I'll never go against Dwight Sutton. So this is there 20 years ago. I think the logic of keeping it in there makes sense to me. So there has been a motion on the floor. So all in favor of the removal of the word intensely on ordinance number 2026 on page 2, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The vote is the vote is 5-1. The chair votes no, so it is 6-1. Thank you. Councilmember Nelson, you have further motions?
Yeah, I mean, you passed my previous motion, so I'm very happy. Okay, so on ordinance 2026-05, Exhibit B, page 3, I move to strike "an intensely" and add in space "a more" in the first sentence under Ferry District on page 3 of Exhibit B of ordinance 2026-05, and you can see it in the red line there. Any second? If not, we'll move on.
Motion fails.
Okay.
Okay, on to the next one. So this one's a little bit more substantive. I move to strike the third sentence under Ferry District on page 3 of Exhibit B of Ordinance 2026-05. So I'd strike the sentence, "New development should replace large areas of surface parking wherever possible."
What page is this motion on? Sorry.
And you can see it on the screen, Mayor.
And I second that.
Is it moved and seconded by Councilmember Nelson to strike the line? Is it "new development should replace large areas of surface area parking"? Thank you. Discussion. First, Deputy Mayor Itopoulos and Councilmember Matthews.
Mayor, could you let us know? I'm literally going, that was my comment. Could you just give us, would it be okay for Councilmember Nelson just to give us a quick why?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Ferry District, so I'm making this motion in defense of parking for the ferry. A lot of the Ferry District is parking for the ferry, and so a lot of islanders commute to Seattle by ferry, and I don't think that our policy should be to seek to redevelop away all ferry parking. And so that's my justification.
Councilmember Schneider and Deputy Mayor Itopoulos.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't support this. I feel that just because there's surface parking targeted for redevelopment doesn't mean that parking overall goes away. So I think there's probably a lot of islanders that could say, maybe asphalt's not the best land use we got. So I'll vote no.
Thank you, Thank you, Councilmember Schneider. Deputy Mayor Itopoulos.
I guess I have a question as to, I completely agree with Councilmember Schneider. And I've always assumed that we should replace those big asphalt lots with useful like housing, et cetera. But my question is there somewhere, I don't know if staff can speak at all to anywhere where we're also saying that we're trying to not lose that parking? And I want to point out that I think I remember looking at Councilmember Nelson's comments and it talking about all the islanders that drive their park and so, but there's people from all over the county who use our portal. That's why we have such an intense, I was one of them many, many years ago. And so I think we do owe it to the region we'll all disagree here as to what ratio of those spots we save, but where are we saying that as we cover these lots with development like housing, where we have some obligation to help make sure there is parking as well? Is that something anyone can point us to?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
I think you're probably talking about something that would be in the Winslow sub-area plan. I don't have that just at my fingertips, but I understand what you're saying, that council wants to make sure that there is parking both for our residents and also for other people.
I guess it doesn't change my, sorry for speaking.
Yeah, sure.
It won't change my vote. I will vote not to remove it because we should be replacing that with something that we can use that isn't a bunch of asphalt. I hope we have a commitment elsewhere in the plan to also create it elsewhere.
Further discussion? I would agree with the Deputy Mayor, and that's always been something I've always found that it's I don't know if it's embarrassing, but the first thing that a lot of visitors come and see of our island after they get off the ferry are just acres of parking. I just don't think it's a great welcoming look to our community. So I've always thought definitely that should be of a higher and better use. So I think it should stay in there. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So you have 5 nays and the chair votes aye, a nay, so it is 6 nays, and the only lone vote was the motion maker. Thank you. Councilmember Nelson, more motions?
Continuing down the line here. Okay. So this next one's another intensely one. I move to strike an intensely and add in its place a more in the first sentence under High School Road District on page 3 of Exhibit B of Ordinance 2026-05. Is there a second? If not, we'll move on.
Don't see a second. Thank you. Moving on.
Okay, moving on. No second. Okay. Okay, good. So the next one, this is actually a very important one, I think. So I move to strike the last sentence under BIMC section 18.12.030 sub C sub 2 sub A. And it says parking requirements outlined in BIMC 1815-020 may be reduced as approved by the director. Can I get a second and I'll give you my justification?
Second.
Okay. The reason for this is that if we're already reducing parking to half a parking spot per unit, I don't think that we should also be granting discretion to the planning director to further reduce that. And that's my logic on this one.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I have a procedural problem as well, which is I'm not a fan of the planning director making decisions that are substantive like this. And so, for example, if this had said that like the planning commission or something could do that, I'd feel differently. So the combination of further reductions and putting it in the hands of the director in a back room, I'm not comfortable with it either.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Lant.
Yeah, I'm in support of this. I think that parking is such a hot button issue that it should be more of a community conversation when it's being reduced.
Thank you, Councilmember Lant. Councilmember Scheider. Oh, yeah. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Okay. For discussion. None. Councilmember Fowler Johnson not want to weigh in. Thank you. All right. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
I didn't say anything, did I?
No. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we have six ayes. Is that what I saw? All right. 6 ayes and the chair votes aye, 7-0, like the motion passes. Are there further motions to be considered?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Of course there is.
We're going down them quick, Mayor. We're going through them quick, okay? I move that the parking spaces per dwelling unit minimums in table 1815-020-1 and 1815-020-2 be no less than 1 parking space per unit, and that all references to 0.5 spaces per dwelling unit revert back to 1 space per dwelling unit, including in footnote 1 to table 1815-020-1 and footnote 3 to table 1815-020-2.
Second.
And you can
second in Councilmember Nelson.
And I included for everyone's benefit the tables, and you can see where 0.5 is replaced with 1 space. It's a pretty straightforward motion. I continue to oppose the reduction in parking. I doubt this motion is going to pass, but I just need to put it on the record.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. 3 yeas and 3 nays. The chair votes nay. Motion fails 4-3. Councilmembers Lant, Nelson, and Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos in favor. Any further motions?
Sir. Okay. I move that the guest parking maximums in table 1815-020-1 and 1815-020-2 revert back to 0.5 spaces per dwelling unit.
Second.
And you can again see an excerpt in the table.
Go ahead, Councilman Nelson.
Yeah, you can again see I put in the table for you to see where it reverted back from 0.1 stall per dwelling unit to 0.5, and that's guest parking. And I'll just let the council vote on this.
So your motion is to return it back to 1. What is exactly? What do
To
you?
0.5,
Oh, 0.5.
which is
Yeah.
what it was before.
Okay, yeah, that. Good. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. So in the spirit of compromising and wanting to compromise tonight, I don't want it just to be, we're blanketly not doing this. So when I think we had from the Growth Management Policy Board, we had that list of things that help achieve affordable housing. And number 2, on a list with mandatory inclusionary zoning, but number 2 were parking requirements. And so this for me is a non-negotiator. And I'm sorry, I'm making an effort on all, but this one I can't support.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Matthews, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, and Councilmember Schreiber.
Yeah, my problem with this one is I don't feel that I have the expertise to analyze what appropriate guest parking is. So I definitely feel like I understand how people utilize their homes and so forth. And so, I mean, I suppose I could abstain, but I can't support it because I just don't know what an appropriate ratio is.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, Councilmember Schreiber.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the main sort of guiding principles I have is that in most cases, parking is going to be determined both by a developer determining what is going to be marketable for their homes, and maybe even more so by the financer's requirements. So really the only time you're going to get the lower, the request for lower parking is for affordable housing. And that's where parking is just so incredibly expensive and just drastically bites into how much affordable housing you can have. And that's where, the financing is coming from, the desire to make more of affordable housing and less of housing for parking. So no, I couldn't support this.
Thank you, Councilmember Schreiber. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The vote is, let's see, 4-2, and the chair votes no. So it is 5-2 with affirmatives from Councilmember Lamb and Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Nelson.
I have 2 more and they're pretty straightforward. So ordinance 2026-05 Exhibit B, page 30. So I move to strike unless a lower parking requirement is applicable at the end of the second sentence of footnote 1 to table 18.15.020-1. And you can see it on, oh, wait for a second.
Okay, we're reading.
Second.
Okay, thank you. You can see it on the page here. And really this goes back to the other one about the director having discretion or anyone else having discretion to go below this, because I'm having difficult time understanding when this would apply unless a lower parking requirement is applicable. And this probably was put in here because we had given the director the discretion to reduce it below 0.5. And so since we as a council actually removed that, I think this should also be removed.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I think that we've seen that there's it goes down to like 1/10 of a parking space in some of these. So I'm guessing that that's what's meant by if a lower applies, which is hard to imagine, but in the guest parkings. So I don't think I have a problem with it because I don't think this authorizes some sort of lowering of parking spaces. I think it's just referencing other areas of the code and try to be internally consistent.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Nelson.
Actually, the deputy mayor raises a great point, which this would apply to the guest parking. And since we have removed the planning director's discretion to go lower for other parking requirements, I'm actually okay with this. And so I'm going to withdraw this motion. I'm not going to make my next motion. Okay?
Thank you very much. And is that your final motion?
That's my final motion. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson, with 2 minutes to spare. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
All right, I've got 2 quick motions that have only arisen because I meant to actually try to modify the language that was offered by Councilmember Nelson, so this will be easy. That was in those 2 places with the intensely so let me just see if I can make the motion. So one of them is going back up to his motion that was early on, ordinance 2026-05 Exhibit B, page 3, where he was saying, I move to strike "and intensely" and add in its place a "more" in the first sentence under Ferry District. I would actually combine those and say the Ferry District is a more intensely developed district on the island. and so forth.
Second.
I don't think what Councilmember Nelson wanted, a more developed district. I mean, again, I don't have a problem with the word intensely. It's language that makes sense in planning. But I'd prefer to soften it with that as opposed to making it to me saying it's an intensely, whatever, as opposed to it's a more intensely developed district amongst our districts.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I really like the acting as emphasis. That's really appreciated.
Do I need to give more clarity to the clerk about where I am? It's page.
I've got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And there's a second one. Okay.
And it's been seconded. Motion is made by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councilmember Nelson, I believe. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Council votes 6-0 and the chair votes aye, and so it's 7-0. Motion passes.
Second one is, if it's okay, the second one's just basically the same thing, but for the high school road district on page 3 of Exhibit B, the high school road district is designated as a more intensely developed district, as opposed to it is designated as an intensely developed district. Same way.
Second.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. Similar motion from the previous. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Vote is 6-0. Chair votes aye. Passes 7-0. Any further motions on this topic as the clock ran out?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So if there are more, shall we add 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's okay.
We good with that? All right.
Oh.
With the agreement of the council, 15 more minutes. So first, Councilmember Matthews, then I believe the Deputy Mayor was second, Councilmember Nelson.
Well, I just had one more. So I moved to direct staff in conjunction with the Planning Commission to work on language and standards for a mandatory inclusionary zoning program to be brought back for review and recommendation. Oh, second.
Moved by Councilmember Matthews and seconded by the Deputy Mayor to bring back inclusionary housing, whatever the language that you just said. Is there further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Council votes 6-0. Chair votes aye. 7-0. Passing on the motion. Any further motions? I can take back 14 minutes. Very good. All right. Very good. Thank you. Oh, Councilmember Nelson.
No, don't we need a motion to move this to a future?
Yes, please.
I'm trying to find the motion, frankly.
It's on page 179 of the packet or
Okay, yeah,
on
I-
Councilmember Matthews.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. I move to forward ordinance 2026-05 to a future business meeting for further consideration after review and recommendation by the Planning Commission in the month of August to return to council in September.
It's moved by Councilmember Nelson. Is there a second? Councilmember Matthews seconded. I think we understand the motion. And further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, council votes 6-0. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. All right. Let's move to, I'm just asking the council if you really would like a 5-minute break at this moment, because I think we have some more time in this meeting. Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
We'll take a 5-minute recess, please.
Just go to
Thank you.
restroom.
All right.
You're done.
Wait, good to go.
Right? Council is returned from recess. Okay, well now we have recess. Council item number 7, C, schedule a joint public hearing with the Department of Commerce for July 28th, 2026 regarding the city's progress toward meeting the Housing Accountability Act.
Council, good evening, Ellen Schroer. We're asking you today to schedule a joint public hearing with the Department of Commerce, which is part of our response to the Housing Accountability Act audit. We are the first city to have one of these joint public hearings, so we are actively working with Commerce to understand exactly how it's going to go. But this is part of their process to move us through the Housing Accountability Act process. It will be in 2 weeks, and we will have representatives from Commerce here. Tonight, the action is simply to ask you to schedule that public hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson.
Just briefly, is this in addition to or instead of the public hearing that we are setting for the comprehensive plan?
This is a separate action related to the Housing Accountability Act. The next item is related to 2026-04, and so that will be an item scheduled for a public hearing at a separate time. This is completely focused on the Housing Accountability Act. This item is.
Okay, and I just have one other question, and then I'll I noticed attached in here is sort of the draft updated capital facilities element and other elements. I'm still not seeing that sewer capacity table that we had requested.
I'm so glad you asked about that. It is top on my list for tomorrow. Our city engineer has been out on vacation, and then I was out on vacation, so we didn't get a chance to tidy that up, but we do have that on our list, and we'll be getting it this week.
Councilor Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to be clear for the public, this is scheduling the joint public hearing with Commerce. This is not the joint public hearing to hear on so we're not, just so folks are clear. So this is going back to Planning Commission, and then there will be an actual public hearing. So this is just for the Department of Commerce. So with that, I move to schedule a joint public hearing with the Department of Commerce for July 28th, 2026 to discuss the city's progress towards meeting the Housing Accountability Act.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. A second. Councilor Matthews moves to schedule that meeting. Councilmember Nelson, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Vote is 6-0. Chair votes aye. Now moving to item number 7.
Mayor, I think that
Yep.
the interim planning director had some comments to make. Nothing? Okay.
What? No.
I said no, but thank you.
Nice to see you again. Item number 7D, update on ordinance number 2026-04, adopting the 2024 comprehensive plan periodic update, including Winslow sub-area plan. We have on this about 20 minutes scheduled.
Council, thank you. This is the next discussion of ordinance 2026-04, which is the ordinance that adopts the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, along with the Winslow sub-area plan and the associated environmental impact statements. We had originally intended to ask you to schedule the public hearing of this ordinance tonight, but we are not asking you to do that because we have determined that we still have some due diligence and work to do on this ordinance. I regret that this progress and project is delayed. We are committed to getting it done just as soon as we can. Our interim planning director is here to provide a short briefing on what we're currently working on. But I will let you know that staff is working to finish the final environmental impact statement, but we can't finalize that work until the comprehensive plan and Winslow sub-area plan are in their final form. So while we continue to work on compiling checklists and all of the rest of the information that we need, we can't finish until first your work is done, and then we can issue that plan. But I'll turn it over to Emily to give you a briefing on where we are and what comes next.
Okay, thank you very much. And I did want to speak specifically to the parts that are needed still before we can adopt an ordinance that says our comprehensive plan is in fact compliant with the GMA. Some of these things we're actively working on in-house. Some of these things we're working on with our consultants. One of those is that we created public response matrices from the DEIS. We're now adding anything that might have been comp plan related in the interim between. So we are required to say who spoke to us, what did they speak about, and where is this addressed? And if it's not addressed, why? Also, importantly, is the DEIS to FEIS. We have not issued an FEIS, and in fact cannot, until we have a final draft version of the comprehensive plan and the Winslow subarea plan and its various components, which is all those appendices and studies. We have asked our consultants to take a look at each of the DEIS alternatives and the final preferred alternative, which is the final plan. And there will be portions of it that we've looked at in different alternatives, and they will be applicable to the final because we kind of made a blend of those things. There may be, and we're not anticipating it yet, but there may be some areas that we have not covered fully. If so, then we will in fact do supplemental work. That's always been the plan, and it is the plan now. So first we have to figure out what have we already covered, and have we looked at the full scope of these impacts, because some things we projected way out that we may have already looked at the impact. Other things we might not have caught. So we are in fact actively working right now with our consultants, with LMN and their sub-consultants, EA or environmental, to make sure that we have covered every single impact that is coming through. And they are aware that we have, subsequent to their last work, adopted new plans and studies on various topics that they also need to address. So that is our plan, to go back to make sure that we've covered it all, to go back through the public process as is required, but we can't completely done until we know that we're done satisfying the needs of the Planning Commission and specifically the council on a final draft. They think that once we get there, that might take them 6 to 8 weeks. So that I asked, is there any way to speed that up? And they said, not with our current staffing or anyone's. So it's a process that we're going to go through. I just wanted to let you know that that is where we are. We will make sure that the public is aware of these things. These findings will be included in our exhibits and your exhibits so that we can honestly say to Commerce, look, we've met everything you asked us to. We're also going through and updating every checklist that we went through. There's like 6 from various agencies, and showing them where we met these things in the plan. So those are the findings. What was our public participation plan? How have we responded to the public? How have we responded to the mandated requirements in the law? Have we looked at every environmental impact? And then and only then can we issue an FEIS and then finally adopt the comprehensive plan. So it is our hope that it will be legally robust and publicly robust and environmentally robust.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Nelson, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, and then Councilmember
I
Lamb.
just want to first say, I'm so glad you're here. You're so methodical and you're so comprehensive, and it's exactly what we need right now. So I just want to say that a number of citizens have raised this DEIS to FEIS issue, and especially whether the scopes match and whether everything is covered. And I'm just really glad that you're looking at it. And of course, even if it takes a little bit longer, I so appreciate that you're just trying to make sure we get it right. And thank you for that.
I am in fact a public servant first.
And thank you, Councilor Nelson, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say, in addition, just calling out for the public's sake, that I know that you're also referring to the fact, I know that you're referring as well to the fact that we have a groundwater management plan that it was adopted since and so forth. And
That
I'm
came to
feeling very
mind.
confident. Thank you, that you're doing everything you can, and you and all of staff, to make sure that we are legal. So thank
We
you.
have many staff members, distributed staff members working on this to gather this information along with our consultants. So this is a close to all hands on deck sort of situation.
And thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. And do we have a plan in place to have a conversation with Commerce about the challenges that we're having as we're getting close to this finish line, or what's our game plan?
I imagine that will come up in our meeting on Friday.
Got it. Got it. Very good.
We're pre-scheduled for a Friday, 2:00, so.
Very good. One other question. This is for my own knowledge because it's not clear to me. When is the very last time that any element can be tweaked? I'm not looking to do this, but I want a clear understanding of, as we go through some more meetings and somebody says, I have a great idea, let me just change that a little bit. Is that?
I think we're probably there, but it comes down to the council being happy with the final product and the state agencies being happy with the final product. That there's always that possibility that they will run out of patience with us, but that's the danger, is that they go, okay, you've had enough time.
And what if it's in response to public comment during the public hearings?
Which is exactly what I will tell them, because of course it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lant. Further? Okay, here we are. Thanks for the update.
Thank you very much.
Pretty efficient, 3 minutes, not bad. Okay. Our final item, not final item, item 7D, or 7E rather, approve city manager employment agreement. Councilmember Nelson.
I move to waive all privileges related to the city manager search. No second?
Is there a second to this motion? Hearing none, motion fails.
Nothing's confidential anymore.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I'm trying to guess what the goal have been of that motion, and I wonder if there's any advice that we can get from the city attorney as to something that's smaller than that. So in other words, when you said that, I'm thinking, because I think maybe you want to be able to talk something about how we got where we are or something. If we waived all privileges, there's a number of things, including the fact that there are other people's privacy at stake, et cetera. So, which we have obligation to protect. So I don't know if the city, I'm just trying to step in and be helpful and see if there's something, maybe we could be advised as to what we can discuss.
Sounds like a question for our attorney. Thank you.
Great question. So, Andrew Soming, City Attorney. So, with respect to anything that was attorney-client privilege or attorney work product privilege, the city as a client holds that right to waive that privilege. So it would be up to the prerogative of council if they decide to waive that privilege. With respect to anything that was done in closed session, I think that is, again, up to the prerogative of council. Short answer is yes, that is up to you guys.
Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Burnett.
Revised motion. I move to waive all privileges related to the city manager search, except for the names of candidates that were not made public.
I'll second.
Second.
There was no second. I motioned down. No second. Councilmember Matthews, you had your line on?
No, she seconded.
No, I gavelled before. I waited. You can't keep doing this, okay? Councilmember Matthews and Councilmember Deputy Mayor Fallon Johnson. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I move to appeal.
Yep.
I move to appeal the chair's ruling.
Well, second, if that's what it's appropriate.
Okay, discussion motion.
I believe that I got a second from two different people at the same time, so I think the intent of the council is to entertain the motion.
I speak. I think that we're talking about something that takes some thinking, and we need a moment to think before we don't reflexively. I mean, I know that the chair also does not want us seconding just for conversation's sake. You've made that request, so it's kind of hard to to be able to think through, is this something I want to second? So
there's a second on a motion to appeal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes, opposed. 2 abstentions, I guess. 1 nay. Yeah. Well, there's a majority for the appeal. So you can make your motion again, Councilmember Nelson.
Okay, so I move to waive all privileges related to the city manager search, except for as it relates to the names of candidates that were not made public.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I can't hear, Councilmember Frontline Johnson, you were voicing, I couldn't
No, I
hear.
mean, we didn't have a chance to discuss before you voting. I want to know what does that mean?
Well, the motion, we have a motion that has just been voted upon.
Okay, well, I just
But the,
can't vote for it because I don't
the-
even have enough information.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we just had the motion. We had a vote. Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get the
It
court show of
did.
hands. Okay, let's slow down here. We had a motion to discuss the process withholding the names of the individual candidates, correct? And that was the motion.
The
And-
motion was to waive everything except,
Right.
waive privilege except for the names of
Understood.
candidates that weren't made public.
Right.
So essentially, we could discuss anything that we discussed in, you know, our deliberations, but we're not going to make public people's names.
I think we had a vote, so we're a little bit out of process. So I just want to make sure, what is the vote on Councilmember Nelson's? May I re-ask that? I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I vote aye. So we have one nay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I need a clarification question from the attorney. I'm sorry, because our people, so I get the names are taken out, but you can tell who people are without their names.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Okay. Please, folks, we're really getting way out of order here. I'm just going to rule the motion is carried. Let's just move that forward. At least. And so it's council members Scheiderer, Lant, Nelson, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, myself. You did not vote for.
I did vote for the
Okay.
previous motion.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. All right. So we have 6 yeas and Councilmember Frontline Johnson voted yea. Okay. Finally, thank you. 7-0. So, Council, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I think there are reasons to be concerned. I think we've opened this up and I think we should pull it back a little bit with some ground rules. I don't think any of us have any business saying what any of us said. I think we can talk about what we thought, what we felt, how we traveled through it maybe. But I think it would be not fair to point at each other and, right? It's not our business to disclose other people's experience. I'm just trying to grasp at some things here. I think we should also be careful that we're not slandering anybody, because they're obviously the key people. People are going to know who we're talking about, key people. What we are protecting, of course, for sure, are the many applicants who went on to their positions, didn't leave their positions, et cetera, right? So hopefully we can I just am asking as one of the 7 of us for us to be gracious and thoughtful in what we share and be productive. And hopefully we're just helping the community understand, I'm guessing, that there has been a process, an idea of what the process was like and how we got to our positions where we are. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, floor is open. Discussion on the appointment of the city manager. Councilmember Mike Matthews.
So we need a motion. I move to authorize the mayor to execute the city manager employment agreement with John Morrow.
Motion seconded by Councilmember Scheiderer. Now we have discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
I'm just going to say that I've really struggled with this vote. And it's kind of kept me up at night a little bit. And I think all the way through the process, I have wanted to support who won this process, right? Who ended up being chosen by us, this council. But there's just 2 things that keep weighing on my mind. And I'm just trying to be completely transparent, right? I think I continue to remain concerned that the process itself has deprived this council of meaningful choice. And I'm worried that it's giving the public this perception that Mr. Morrow has won by default. I think the issue is we had 33 total candidates. We had whittled that down to 8 really viable candidates, right? And out of those 8 candidates, over the course of the process, 75% of them withdrew. 6 candidates withdrew. Now, at a certain point, from the 8 candidates, we chose 4 candidates that were potential finalists, right? Out of those 4 finalists, 75% of them withdrew. So we lost 3 more candidates and we were left with 1 candidate. And so we've seen a lot of messages from the community on this. And I think the second thing that keeps weighing on my mind, and I keep going back to first principles. The reason we're all up here is to represent the community, to represent the people of Bainbridge Island, and to listen to the people of Bainbridge Island. And all I'm hearing over and over and over again is that the community does not support this candidate. And so I unfortunately have come to the conclusion that I need to listen to the people on this one. And so I am going to be a no vote on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Deputy Mayor Topos, then Councilmember Scheider.
Well, I'm gonna own my vote a little bit more than that. Because I wouldn't just defer to the community. I think it's an important factor. But without saying too much, because I don't want to, I'm not here to assassinate anybody's character or go on at length. I have not felt this person is the right person for the position. That is, I think I just want to prophylactically say that I'm not basing that on social media posts, et cetera. I do have my own ability to make that assessment in interviewing, et cetera. And I don't believe this is the right candidate for this position at this time on this island. I also think at this point, the public process has gotten to the point that even if I had been rooting for this candidate, I'd be very hard pressed to vote for him because right or wrong, again, whatever really is going on with who this person is, the perception is so bad of both the process and concerns about the candidate. Putting all of that aside, I am also not in support of the package that has been proposed. Now, obviously, it may be colored by the fact that I'm not supportive of the candidate, but I think this package is excessive. I think our previous city manager had decades of experience. He was at the end of his career. I think that each candidate who came forward before us, as we consider whether we're going to provide what package we provide, it should be based on that person's particular trajectory and experience. And this particular candidate has very little direct experience, and I do not believe should be topping out at this level. If I remember this community making less than that, which probably most people do, certainly half, I'm not going to opine, but many, many people in this community are not wealthy and are holding on here. And I think it's the total compensation package is really high. So I've said more than I want to say, because again, I wanted to be clear that I was making a decision on multiple fronts, not reaction just to the community, not reaction to social media posts. I've made a genuine decision about both the contract and the person, and I won't be voting for them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Topos. Councilmember Scheider.
So very differently from my previous colleagues. John Morrow was my first choice from the get-go. And I have seen the letters of recommendation that are more than sterling. They are enthusiastic and authentic, and anyone would be proud to have the kinds of recommendations. But I've also talked with other people who are not official recommenders, and they have also been enthusiastic and, you couldn't do better and whatever. So, he is going to be proving himself when he gets here, as would any new city manager. And I look forward to that process, because I think he's going to be absolutely great for Bainbridge Island, great for improving public process. And I expect to see innovative stuff that happens here because of him. So I'm very much looking forward to hopefully the passage of this particular support for this candidate. He was always my number one.
Thank you, Councilmember Schneider and Councilmember Matthews. And then I can't remember Councilmember Frontline Johnson, if you were before Councilmember Matthews, was she?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I've got Councilmember seeking and then you next, Councilmember
I
Frontline
think
Johnson.
Councilmember Fisher Johnson was before me. Oh, she just.
Then she took off, sorry. Oh,
Okay, so I just wanted to, now that we can talk about the process a little bit, since privilege. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, Karen.
your mic.
So I think a way to go forward would be taking the community with us maybe back. And we started a process with all of these applicants and we interviewed them as a council and then we rated them how we saw 1 to 3. Throughout the process, City Manager Morrow was either 1 or 2, I believe, for all of us. And 1 for most through the end. So it wasn't that he was the last one standing, he was already in that spot for most of us. And we all had time to do a lot of research. So I spent time talking to the county commissioner who had worked in Jefferson County, the one who just left in January. And we had of some of our recommendations were from somebody who had been a detractor. And so really had a good opportunity to speak about a lot of the issues that the community is now concerned with. I think that this waiving privilege will allow people to see a little bit more of the process. So that is good because it's not a leftover. Council also decided all 7 of us were going to stand behind this decision. And so that's changed apparently. But at that end, Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos had changed that a day. Maybe she had said maybe last week, she would not be supporting, but then it was all of us. So it is different to see that. But I would also ask the community to be a little bit, think about coming into an area or a hostile environment and how that might feel and why it's hostile. And let's assume good intent. He's also the president of the City Managers Association incoming. There are lots of things that are positive. And I really think that especially his sustainability track record, he is not going to make he's actually, I think, going to make most of the folks saying that they don't want him very happy because he is very sustainability, water oriented. So I really think that we need to trust this is where it got to sort of not pay attention. A lot of the things online and innuendos were that he was chosen, that Councilmember Fantroy Johnson and myself had gone to Port Townsend and handpicked this man. That did not happen. She's never met him. I met him years ago when Blair King was still here, didn't know he was ever leaving. He happened to do park run at Fort Ward. I didn't see much of him because he was way faster than I am. So it was just a sight. Oh, that's the city manager of Port Townsend. Nothing. So this was not a chosen person. None of us had any sort of horse in the race. I did not know he was applying. So I think a lot of his issues are coming from folks thinking that a certain group wanted him. That's not the case. It was a process. And I think we should just not be so cruel with how we talk about people. People have feelings and are human.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Frontline Johnson, sorry I passed you, and then Councilmember Lamb. someone
sorry, someone was at the door and I had to get it.
No worries.
Sometime I'm gonna have to eat. I don't want to say too much about it other than I do support this candidate. And this is the second city manager recruitment that I've been a part of. And I was not happy with the first one. And then I turned out for me, he was a great city manager. So I guess I'm just saying that is one of the things that I was asked when they appointed me to this council was, would I be able to, be open if things don't go my way, And that's to me what a council is. You know, we get together, we talk about it, we all have our own opinions, and sometimes things don't go our way, you know, but you don't know how that's going to turn out. I think everybody would have been shocked if it did go their way. They still would have said there was something wrong with that, and it was definitely going the other way. But you know, things change. People take different positions. And that had nothing to do with anything that the council voted on. It was personal decision. And you know, to imply that there's not a process is wrong. There's a very detailed process when we're selecting someone who's going to have such an important position. I am definitely going to support this.
Thank you, Councilmember Franklin Johnson, Councilmember Lant, and Deputy Mayor Itopoulos.
Thank you. So hiring a city manager was one of the reasons that I ran for office, frankly. And I'll echo Councilmember Nelson is that I've had quite a bit of sleepless nights thinking about the optics of this process. The optics of this process has been terrible. It has not been the fault of the candidates. It's not been the fault of council. It's not been the fault of the firm that was recruiting. It's just circumstantial. It is what it is, and here we are. I tell you what I was looking for, though. I wanted someone who would not only support employees, but get to know them as individuals, someone who would hire capable directors and listen carefully to counsel and understand the intent and the nuances behind our policy choices, and also help build a positive relationship with the community. And these are the standards I'm going to hold any city manager to, and I expect this candidate to meet those standards. I expect him to listen and dig into the issues and understand the history and the complexity, and then work very carefully towards solutions. Bainbridge has been without a permanent city manager for 7 months. And I want to thank interim city manager Ellen Schroer for her just unfailing work towards keeping us moving. I also want to thank, yes, absolutely. Yes. I also want to thank the staff that has been holding this place together. I know that there's been quite a few managers and other staff. I'm talking to you back in the back room there. You've been holding this place together, doing the job of higher level work than likely you assumed you would be doing, plus the work that you're assigned to do, plus manage employees. That's a lot, and we very much appreciate that. But again, until this position is filled, we're not moving forward with hiring a planning director. We're not moving forward with hiring a public works director. We're not holding a council retreat so we can establish our priorities as we talk about budget discussions. And it's for those reasons that I feel like we need to support this candidate and hire him for this position. And I do hope the community will keep an open mind, give him a fair opportunity to do good work.
Thank you, Councilmember Lant. Deputy Mayor Itopoulos.
Yeah, I will try to keep it really simple because like I said, I didn't want to say much. I do want to say a couple things. I did want to echo that nothing that's happened, I feel was the fault of our recruiting firm. They were excellent. I think a lot of this is circumstance about the withdrawals of candidates. I think there's two things to be said about that. I think one is that I think that is the major process problem at the end of the day, putting aside again questions of, is this just about the community being upset about certain, a certain faction of the community is just upset because they perceive this person a certain way, and writing off a huge number of people in the community who've written into us, many of whom have a problem with that process issue. The fact is we are hiring someone by default. And that is something that is a fact. That is what's happening. The idea that just because as we move through the process and winnowed down and lost candidates on the way, that we ranked them a certain way, and then we met them and interviewed them and learned more and heard back feedback from our committees who interviewed, et cetera, and had a different feeling about that person than we did virtually, does not discredit that arc of that decision-making. And I do regret that there had to be references to my own arc, because we did agree at the beginning of this conversation, we weren't going to talk about where the others had been. But it is true that I did change my mind. And a lot of what I changed my mind about, again, I just want to drive home, is it's complex. It's the process. It's the right fit personality-wise. It's the public's perception, et cetera. And of course, now the contract. So I just want to be clear that yes, I changed my mind, and that's what we do. And if we had to, as a council, say, wow, even if I thought this was the right candidate, that maybe where we are right now, because we're choosing someone by default, even if they are our candidate, et cetera, the public has been so in touch with us that this is not a good way for someone to start. I'm actually surprised that he would want to start with us. That said, two last things. One, I will of course work with Mr. Morrow. It's obvious this council is going to hire him. And once we're past this conversation, I'm going to be a team player and work with him. And I hope he really surprises me, and that'll be great. I guess the last thing I want to point out, because I don't think this is over for us wherever it goes tonight, and that is there's something going on that has led to these withdrawals, right? Some of it naturally happens, but we have an incredibly high level withdrawals. This is my fourth selection process, fifth if you count the first interim that we brought in when we first started the form of government. And we've been plagued by similar problems. And my recommendation when we got down to one candidate, when Mr. Knighton withdrew, was that we actually pause. Not that we go back. Now we pause and go back out and ask Raffatellis to bring us more candidates. We had a good pool of candidates. We had the best pool of candidates we've had in all the times that I've done this. And yet here we are again, right? And I think what we needed to do was pause, ask our interims if she'd stick with us for a while or get another interim, and try to figure out what we need to do here to calm this community down and have some level of healing of some sort, or redirection or something, and then go out again, honestly. Because I don't think just adding more candidates was going to help. So I do hope going forward, we figure out how, I kind of was touching on some of this at our last meeting when I was making comments about character assassination and public debate and so forth. Our community has a lot of toxicity, and it's pretty clear to people who watch. When we went out when we did the search where we brought in Doug, I believe it was, we were told by our consultant that we had a reputation of being ungovernable. That's a long time ago. So I guess I just want to say, as we go forward, I hope this turns out better than I think it's going to, and let's all try to figure out how to have a better community conversation. I hope that we actually, as much as we've disagreed, we're doing pretty well up here. I'm really proud of us. So, look at us. We're having a really hard conversation right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, just a few things. I think when we did get down to one candidate, I did ask that we reopen this, and the council decided to go a different direction. I understand that. I was also supportive of just appointing the interim, because I think she's done an incredible job. The council decided to go a different direction, and I respect that. And I think I also just want to say that I've heard out there that, quote, the fix was in. That's not true. In fact, this council almost went a different direction, but circumstance changed. Okay, so I just want to make sure the community knows that. And so we are here where we are. And I think the last thing that I'll say is that even though I'm not going to vote in favor of this here, I really want Mr. Morrow to succeed. And I'm going to support him and work with him in his role. And he's clearly extraordinarily intelligent, extraordinarily driven. And I hope he does an excellent job. Okay, I'm going to vote against this, but I do hope for the best for our community. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Any further comment? Councilmember Matthews.
Sorry, Mayor, really quickly. And I didn't know there was privilege that we weren't talking about. So I didn't understand what that was. So I apologize. It was just trying to say what happened in the process. I also had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Knighton And I will speak with him first before since that wasn't a privileged conversation or anything, but I don't want to speak of what our private conversation was, but there was some good insight as to why he withdrew.
Thank you. I'm finished now. So the chair privilege will allow me an extended period of time because I have a lot to say. First of all, if there was a fix, boy, that was screwed up. It didn't work. So much for that fix idea. Secondly, just to point of process, as you heard, 33 candidates, 12 from our state, the other 20 from 7 other states. Rafatelis did a fantastic job. The fact that we had that kind of reach, and without getting into candidates, but somewhere from much larger cities and much larger organizations that were dwarfed by them. They still wanted to come here. And one of the reasons was we finally got our house in order, I think, over these last few years. I think Deputy Mayor Hitopoulos said it. There was a bad impression. And I met with people from Association of Washington Cities. They used to tune into our city and watch. See what's happening at city. Let's get the popcorn and see what Bainbridge is going to be crazy tonight. It was really, it's staggering and embarrassing, and that's really not how we want to project our community. But the fact that we had these kind of quality candidates, I think we got a great manager, Blair King, and the fact that 281 cities, we talk about this all the time, AAA bond rating, the envy of everybody else. We have a bigger reserve than most cities do. We are in a great fiscal position with great morale, I believe, on our city. It's a different city. And I'm really proud to be, at least on this council at this time, to be serving on that. But through that process, we, as others have pointed out, we did come with 8 finalists, and we did have 4. Now, I just want to give you the background on this. On June 15th was the day we were going to do this announcement. I was the guest speaker at the Rotary's monthly luncheon. I thought, well, this is great. I get to do a little, hey, I get to announce the names. And I actually talked to the city, said, wait, let me have at least the Rotary auction so they can kind of get the scoop. So we had those 4, and the Rotary asked me to give me my PowerPoint. And it had to be done by Saturday because it was Monday. Well, prior to that Saturday, one of our candidates dropped out, a person of color who got a much bigger job with much bigger pay. And then we had 3, and I had 3 names up there. One of them was a woman. And she dropped out the Sunday before, even I think Monday morning. I don't know, it was late, but the name was already on the board. So there I said, here's the 2 names you saw, and this woman candidate who also took another position because she was talented. And so we had this. And it wasn't attrition. I would look at it this way. You know, there's an NFL draft, and these are our 4 draftees. We wanted them. But 2 other teams poached them. 2 other teams said, yeah, we think that person's great too, and so we want to hire them. So it's an indication of the quality of candidates that we had in this pool. As others have said, it was very extraordinary. And the fact that these individuals did get these other positions at one of a much, much larger multi-billion-dollar agency, and others, they showed that they were the people that we had that kind of caliber of talent. We should feel good about that. And Mr. Knighton made his choice, and that was his choice. I can't speak about why or when, but this was not just the last of the draw. And as other people pointed out during the interviews, John was one of the top 1 or 2, and I think any of the 4 in their situations, I think any of these 4 people would have been competent city managers. I really believe that, for their own different strengths and own different abilities. So it's really unfair to say that it's just the last person standing. And I also found it fascinating. I thought to myself, people were saying, oh, of course, you only picked 2 white men. Well, as I mentioned, we had 1 person of color and 1 woman. And I can only imagine, given some of the hubbub we've had recently with our issues, that had those 2 men, had Mr. Morrow and Mr. Knighton dropped out, and we only had a person of color and a woman, you go, oh, there's Bainbridge Island with their DEI lens, and you're just picking those 2 people. I mean, we would not be able to win this. We would probably heard that as well. And we had just the opposite lens. We wanted competence. We wanted people that we believe we could run the city, and all of them fit that category. So there's no question about that. Secondly, a lot of you know about my past, and that I've been the target of a professional cyber stalker, bully, harassing. It was nationwide news. And I know what it's like to be vilified and trolled and harassed and, frightened out of my wits from unfair, unnecessary social media attacks. And go Google it. It's incredible. He's still out there. He created a post. He created a website, not Clarence Moriwaki. Stop Clarence Moriwaki. Don't stop me from what, I'm not sure. But I know what it's like. And what was happening to this candidate was very unfair. And I have reached out, and I will give you her name if you want it, that former city council member, former mayor of the city of Port Townsend. She was happy I reached out to her because she said, I want to weigh in, but I don't feel like I can do this as a former elected weigh into your city process. Had an hour and a half talk with her, and everything that she saw on media, she said that was all wrong. They're lies, things about past behavior, things about enhancing resume. She was there. And her question to us was, that's a 2024 article. Don't you think we city council members read the newspaper? And they did. And you should read a newspaper from March of this year, the Port Townsend Leader, his recent review, 5 out of a rating of 5, it was average of 4.7. I mean, he had extraordinary talent. And a lot of this, quite frankly, and you can look at the record, this is not speaking out of school. The city of Port Townsend became a city manager government in 1998. And the people who were used to the strong mayor government liked it that way. And previously strong mayor liked it that way. And very resentful that the government had changed. They had a new city manager, the first one, who was a person who was competent but not very outgoing. The community really did not like that he reached out. The community demanded that they have someone outgoing. Actually, that former city manager said that he trained his dog to bark at anybody who said the word city. He said that publicly at a meeting, so I'm not speaking out of turn. And so the city got this person. And when they came in, it was almost a joke. They said our city probably had $10,000 in the bank. I mean, it was in shambles. And what they had was an entrenched kind of situation of career people that got into this, I don't want to say old school, but just the way of doing things. And he had a responsibility to get the city in line. So that meant he had to create a new executive team. And some of the people were let go, some of them quit. There were long-standing resentments because these are people in the community for decades who went to school and they went to Rotary and all that. But he had a different job to do. His job was to bring the city back into full good standing that was left in pretty rough work. And he did that. And a lot of the attacks and a lot of things were some of the disgruntlement of those who didn't like the change. But if you look at the city of Port Townsend now compared to when he started, it is better. And as Councilmember Matthews had pointed out, there's the Association of City Managers, statewide association. He is the incoming president, which says something about the 281 cities or other city, they're not a city manager, but all those who are city manager think of this person's individual character and quality and achievement. So I have full confidence in that. And I would think that our city should feel good that we have someone of this character. I find it fantastic that he was, you've heard of Chili Hilly, everyone? Cascade Bicycle Club? He was president of that. For many, many years, the Chili Hilly, he was the person running it on our island. He bikes to work all the time, and he's fitting this profile that we can't even ask for. So I would hope our community would, as someone said, he will be competent. I truly believe that. And I really think that it's unfair to have, as I know, your reputation slandered without a lot of them were lies. Most all of it on me were lies. And many of these comments were, at the very best, not truthful. This person, and I'll give you her phone number if you want her, the publisher of the newspaper, Port Townsend Leader, only hired his sons to run the paper who had never had newspaper experience. So that newspaper became his mouthpiece. And he didn't like the city manager government. He didn't like his pay. So he went after him. And a lot of the things were not true. That's what this former mayor, former city council member said. And you can talk to her personally if you wish. So I heard it straight from there. And those city council members, had any of these things been true, they should be kicked out and fired for negligence of not taking care of this problem. but that didn't exist. They did their diligence. You can't punish someone for something they did not do. And so I think we got to let's really be calm here. He is a competent person. I feel good about it. And I also want you from that personal perspective. When I see people getting attacked on social media, I'm so empathetic. And especially when they're not true. And so just as a person, you know, I feel for him and what his family has to hear. It's difficult when you're the target of that kind of social media bullying and cyber attacking. And that's unfortunate. I'm sorry that he had to face that. So thank you, council, for allowing me that time. So I guess there's no further discussion. Do we have no other? I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
So we have 5 yeas, 2 nays. The chair votes aye. So it's 6-2 with council members Nelson.
Point of order, 5-2.
5-2, 5-2, 5-2, sorry.
And it's set.
Yeah, it's late. Yeah, math. The 2 dissenters are Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos and Councilmember Nelson. Thank you for the math correction, Councilmember Nelson. Okay, thank you, Council, and I appreciate, and I want to thank you for the what's the word I'm looking for? The decorum. You know, the respect. I mean, I'm really trying hard to hold meetings that are respectful and everyone has their voices. And I want to send that message that we are a council that works together and respects each other and hears everybody's voices. And that's good governance, in my opinion. We have a lot of crap going on in the nation. The best thing we can do is try to do the best job we can here. And I think I applaud all of you. I think we are doing that. And you guys help too. So there we are. The city, whatever, those guys. Okay. Thank you, council, and thank you for your candor and a very civil discussion. Appreciate it very much. So it's item 7, where are we at? 8A, communication. Councilmember Fratler Johnson, you've been waiting for this. Do you have something you want to move forward for further discussion?
Yes, I do. Kitsap Community Resources Director Tony Ives, he presented to us a while back the last community assessment report. And I'd like to have on a future agenda that he come and present the latest one, which tells us what is a community survey. And it focuses on group discussions to tell us how our community is doing, where the gaps are. And, you know, he's going to come and talk to us about it. So
Great.
I hope we could all agree that that's a good thing and have it on a future agenda.
I'll accept that as a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Land seconds. Any discussion? Sounds like a great idea to me. All in favor for this as a future discussion, have a report from,
Aye.
Aye. Oh. Okay, aye. Any nays? I don't think so. The council votes 6-0, chair votes aye, so it's 7-0. That'll be forward to a future discussion. And are there any council announcements to share? Councilmember Nelson? Councilmember Fratler Johnson, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that I attended the REACT meeting and they are working on, trying to pull it up here. They are working on a document to be reviewed by the council and to be determined whether or not we would like to move it forward as an ordinance. And this document kind of outlines how we're going to enact racial equity and how we're going to do that as a core government responsibility. And so this is just me notifying you that the council may be receiving something soon on this.
Yeah, thank you for that report out. Councilmember Nelson.
I was just going to say on Saturday, I was at the Rotary auction, which is just an incredible event every year. We go every year, and you'll be pleased to know that I won the auction for a rowboat, and I managed to get it in the back of my truck and get it home. And so that was a small victory, pictures to prove it. So it was a lot of fun. I love that. So thank you to Rotary for another successful auction.
Congratulations, Skipper. Councilmember Lent and Councilmember Matthews.
All right, just briefly, the Bainbridge Island History Museum had a presentation in front of the Design Review Board last week, and this was the first time that the Design Review Board, the DRB, has reviewed a project under the new state regulations. And it was quite interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot of conversation about how the process of their initial review and the planning staff's implementation during the permitting time is going to sync up, because there's some things, some processes that will have to be worked out. But it was a good meeting. The project, of course, it looked great. Lots of great feedback, but it was an interesting first one and done with the DRB.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to alert my colleagues to a webinar that AWC is having tomorrow as we go into budget season. It's called Foundations of the City Budget, tomorrow from noon to 1:15. If you go on their site, you can register online. The Kitsap Public Health District met this past week, and just with the late hour, I will update you next meeting because it had to do with the substance that I had wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Any other members? Just quickly update you guys. I've been doing the ED search also for Kitsap 911, so there have been parallel processes. So I beat all of you guys on reading resumes and interviews. And we had our final interviews with our candidates last Friday, and there's an exceptional candidate that you're going to see. And I think a lot of you have been invited, but this Thursday, the Erickson community is going to have their celebration, the new affordable housing project up the road there. And it's at 6 p.m. I hope you can attend and celebrate. I think it's a great thing. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, meeting's adjourned.